Have you ever wondered what it's like to work on licensed games, or what it's like to design not one, but two hit games and see pretty much none of the revenue from it? How do you comprehend being one of the key players behind a game that even folks outside of games will recognize the name of, and eventually give that game away for other people to work on instead and change your vision? Hi, I'm Matt Gamble, and this is About Game Dev, a series where I talk to video game developers from across the industry about, well, game dev, and explore their experiences with design, different styles of development, tooling, and much, much more. On this flagship episode of the show, I'm interviewing Luke Muscat, who, back in the early days of the iPhone, designed both Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride. And while that topic is interesting in and of itself, you'll want to stick around because this discussion spans from his early days at Halfbrick Studios and all of the trials and tribulations that come with working on licensed games, to them then working on their own IP and finding success, to him breaking off to form his own studio and eventually getting acquired, and then finally forming his YouTube channel and starting solo development. I'm so thrilled for this to be the first episode in the series because Luke was so generous with his stories. He's had a fascinating career in game dev, and I really enjoyed talking to him about his history, but also his unique take on design, and especially player input at the forefront of his ideology. In 2024, he released his first solo game, Feed the Deep, and he's now working on his latest project, Normal Golf Game, which, well, you'll hear more about later in the episode. So let's dive in. Do you want to just sort of introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name's Luke Muscat. I am a game developer. I'm currently a solo indie developer, but I've been making games professionally for almost 20 years. And so I have done a lot of things. Like I've worked a bunch of different places, been through quite a lot. Do you want me to just go through
there's like a notable thing that you've done, right?
Yeah.
For
there's
a lot
the
of people.
lead I'm bearing.
Yeah. Let's just jump into it. Let's explore your history a little bit. And, I want to ideally just dive into sort of game design and development and tooling and just all the little nuts and bolts that we can kind of pull into my audience is probably going to be specifically interested in, but I think your history is interesting, and I think I'd love to go through that.
Yeah, so I started in the industry. I was hired as a junior level designer at Halfbrick Studios. So this was the beginning of 2007, and a lot of people will know Halfbrick now or will remember Halfbrick and some of the games. But when I joined Halfbrick Studios, it was not an ideal option.
Okay.
It was so I'm in Brisbane, Australia, and this isn't the same as if you were in LA or something. There isn't heaps and heaps of job options here. We did have a little bit. There's a really interesting history around the game development scene in Brisbane, but the main thing to know would be is it's quite small.
Yeah. Historically quite small.
Historically quite small. Because, Australia is obviously small, and then Brisbane isn't even the big game dev scene is in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Brisbane is actually surprisingly about the same as Sydney, or maybe even a little bit bigger than Sydney. But anyway, there wasn't many places to choose from. I had applied at Pandemic, if you remember Pandemic.
I do. They were the mercenary. Is that Mercenaries? Was that Pandemic?
Look, the one I always remember is Destroy All Humans.
Or Destroy All Humans. Yeah.
And so that's where everyone wanted to work in Brisbane, was Pandemic, because at the time that was they were making the coolest stuff. They had a cool studio, they had a giant metal UFO hanging in their lobby, which, feels kind of probably not that big a deal now because, Google and tech companies have ruined what a regular office should be like. But at the time it was wow, what a cool place to work. Anyway, I got this job at Halfbrick Studios as a junior level designer, and basically started working on Game Boy Advance games. That was the first game I worked on, was just doing level design for a Game Boy Advance game.
How do you do level design for a Game Boy Advance game? Sorry to interrupt.
So all of the games we were doing back then, we had our own engine. It wasn't you weren't using an off-the-shelf engine. It was something that some of the very early employees and the founders of the studio had written. And so we had a little tile-based level design tool, because it was a top-down kind of combat/puzzle game. This was Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, okay.
licensed game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were working for, like, we were basically just doing like contract work. And so it wasn't even like, we didn't even have a direct deal with Nickelodeon, who owned like the licensing for The Last Airbender. We worked for THQ. And so we were like, we're the bottom of the food chain in this situation, right? Which was led to all kinds of things. And so when we made that game, I think we only had a 6-month timeline to make that game. It was really, really tight. I wasn't even on it from the very, very beginning. I came in like 2 months in or something. And yeah, so I was just doing like level design and kind of seeing how the sausage was made. And like, especially back then, it was brutal. Like not on this project, but I started crunching on my 3rd day of working.
Oh man.
I got pulled into this other project that was like in this crunch period, and someone there heard that I knew how to use Flash. And this game that was like, again, like we were super far down the food chain, had these intro sequences that were built in Flash, and the other person had quit. And they were like, oh, you know how to do Flash? So my first game credit as a professional, I'm an artist, not a game designer, because I was like redoing all of these little like mission introductions for this PSP game. And it was instantly like, welcome to the games industry, clear your weekends and clear your evenings. Like this is like welcome.
Usually that would burn people out. Like, so what was it about it then that kept you going, right? Because, you know, if that's your first...
I was young and there were no options. Like, it was...
Fair.
Like, you know, like we had really... And I mean, it was, you know, I was just happy to be in the industry at the time. I was like, oh my God, I'm like in the games industry making games. Incredible. And, you know, I was 22, I guess. You know, I had infinite energy and so I could do it. And so then anyway... after that, like there was a DS game that was kind of like the next, it was for the next season. So the GBA game was for season 2, and then that was one of the last GBA games that was made. And then we moved up to the DS for the season 3 version of the Last Airbender game. And basically, like, I got asked to put together the RFP for that. So like kind of the original pitch. And so I built that, and then it got up, and then kind of just like de facto, I became like the co-lead designer of that project. So I sort of went from like junior level designer to like co-leading a project really, really fast. So that one was like a 9-month project, absolutely savage, you know, reviewed quite poorly, made me hate working with like THQ, all sorts of stuff. And then my co-lead and I then did a Marvel Superhero Squad game after that, also on the DS. He ended up leading. And so by then I was like fully like design lead and kind of production lead running a team at Half Brick. And so it'd be a team of like 6 to 8 people. And all of these projects were just like, they were just brutal because you would just be like, you know, projects were going to kind of like the lowest bidder. And Australia was cheap because the Australian dollar was quite weak. And so we were really like we could get a lot of contracts because, you know, you would have big studios in the US, and it's like, well, Australians will, you know, kind of like as qualified, kind of very culturally aligned, but you pay them half as much essentially.
I mean, that is still happening. It's just not in Australia anymore, right? Like
that's right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But at the time, Australia was really good for that. Yeah. And like, yeah, so I actually you asked about burnout. I already had burnt out by the end of that project. And I said, I'm not doing a licensed game. I'm not working with THQ ever again. I was just like, this is, and you know, I've told a story before, like as just one of many, many examples, the Superhero Squad game that we worked on, which was on this like fucked timeline. They changed the genre of the game on us twice mid-development.
Oh no. Oh man.
Yeah. So we originally got told, hey, make like an kind of like a beat 'em up, like a Streets of Rage style beat 'em up with co-op elements. And we were like, okay. So we started designing that. And again, we had to kind of build the tech for that. We would usually just kind of like rehash, the engine that we already had, but it wasn't super versatile. It was made for one thing. So we would build a bunch of technology around that. And then they were like, actually, the Wii version of the game is going to be more like a Smash Brothers game. So we want you to pivot to a Smash Brothers game. And so that's actually like, that's a big change, you kind of like nominally you're like, well, it's
maybe we can make that work. Yeah, you're trying to justify it in your heads, right? Like,
so we made a bunch of changes and started making that, and we got pretty far down that. And along that road, you make a bunch of decisions, and like one of the decisions is, well, we know that there's only ever going to be 4 characters on screen, right? Whereas like a beat 'em up, there might be like 20 or whatever. You do things with crowds in a beat 'em up, whereas you wouldn't with a Smash Brothers game.
It creates like technical constraints, right?
Yeah. So, and I mean, especially on the DS, like if people think that optimizing stuff for modern engines is hard, it's like, friend, you have no idea. Like where it was like the amount of, you had to be really careful. I'm going to mess this up because at the time I wasn't doing programming, but there was like strict limits on how many polygons you could render across each horizontal line on the DS. Like it was like the way that it kind of like rendered out like the lines was a thing. And like, the constraints were so tight that you would allocate budget for everything before you ever wrote a line of code. Like you would write out a document and it's like, all right, well, we have a 64 megabyte cartridge, 12 megabytes of that are going to be characters, 8 megabytes of that is going to be like props and background. And so when they change something like the genre, it really fucks things up. But then as if you think, wow, that's really bad. How could they possibly make that worse? We get like deep into this contract. We've made this we've managed to pivot our beat 'em up game into a Smash Brothers game, dropped a couple of months into it. And then they're like, oh, bad news. We re-reviewed the contract that we have with Marvel. Like I said, we were at the bottom of like a multi-step food chain. As it turns out, you're actually contractually obliged to deliver a beat 'em up. They won't accept a fighting game. So re-pivot back to the beat 'em up. Also, you don't get any extra time or any extra money.
Oh man!
And then it's like, and then people are like, "Why are these licensed games all so bad and get such bad review scores?" It was it was really brutal. And
welcome to the games industry, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, truly. I mean, look. There was a lot of things that were really bad about that, but I don't want to say it was all bad. Like for one, we had friendships and colleagues that were like, we were like forged in flame.
It's like a summer camp, right? Like you're just there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we were very like tight as like a team and as a company. We also learned how to make things very fast and very cheap. That was what we were kind of became experts at was doing things fast and cheap. And it also, for me, I don't know, I would say I developed like a relatively thick skin and like a very decisive leadership and design style. Like, it wasn't like I would sit around wringing my hands.
It showed you what not to do almost, right?
It was just like, no, you have to make a decision right now and commit to and own that decision, because like doing nothing was worse than doing the wrong thing. It was, you had to just, you were just in full send mode all the time. So, I learned a lot from that, but also it burnt me to an absolute crisp. And I was like, I'm never working with THQ again, basically. Right. I refuse. And I had to be clear, no backup option. It wasn't, but I was like, I would literally rather be working at the supermarket stocking
Yeah,
shelves.
at that point, you're just
shit.
you're so great, you're so in the ground that you're just like, anything is better than this. Unfortunately, that is not an uncommon story for a lot of developers in the industry, right? Like I've heard similar tales through the grapevine from people, or just, you know, colleagues, friends of friends that have had similar sort of experience. Like licensing and like the business aspect of game development is messy.
Yeah. And I mean, especially, you know, back then, being independent wasn't an option, because it was like, well, okay, how are you going to get your game on the shelves of Walmart?
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, and how are you going to license the dev kits and
exactly.
Yeah.
So then basically, but you know, like the CEO of the company, Chanel Dio, had seen the writing on the wall for a little bit, and just being like, we got to get off this treadmill. Like this is while ever this is how things work, there's going to be we're never going to get anywhere. We can like keep making stuff for like, you know, thin margins, and you know, like, to be frank, I was getting paid less than if I was at the beginning. I was getting paid less than if I was working at a supermarket. Like it was, it was like, you know, there just wasn't much money in it. So we started exploring making original IP. And so because Xbox Live Arcade had become a thing, and we couldn't get onto Xbox Live Arcade, but there was Xbox Live Indie Games, if you remember that. That was that was kind of, I feel like people forget that, but that kind of was the one that cracked the door open for anyone. Yeah.
Because they had like summer festivals for indie games on the 360.
Yeah. And it was like that was the first time you could kind of just show up and make something, and you didn't have to kind of go through an extensive greenlighting process. You know, I think there was, from memory, there was a little bit, but by and large, it was like, you seem like you know what you're doing, you're in. Whereas Xbox Live Arcade, it was like you were really pitching hard, and it was pretty rare for a project to get up. And so we started doing, like, as a company, like game jams, and then putting games out on Xbox Live Indie Games. So I had my first original IP game was a game called Rocket Racing, which was like a physics-based. I was really into like physics web games at the time. God, what was the name of that website? There was like just physics web games. But anyway, whatever it was, I designed this racing game that just used like 2 triggers on like a controller. So I guess this is starting to become like preamble of like, I was really into like input, like controls was really interesting to me. Anyway, that game bombed. And then we not the smart, but we were like, the game is good, but it's done poorly. And so then we doubled down and made it a better version of it for the PSP, which was in the PSP Minis program. Surprise, that also bombed, right? And so this is now is like 2008, 2009, and the global financial crisis happens.
Jeez,
and the thing that really happens for Australia is like the US dollar comes down, Australian dollar comes up. Mm-hmm. You know how I was saying before, it was like Australians are like Americans, but half price.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore. We're like overnight, we're full price. And they're like, well, and it's like, A, no one's buying games, so the industry is fucked. And B, we're not getting you to make them. Like you guys are full price now. And so like it's difficult to overstate to people like how the impact that it had on the Australian game industry. I forget what the stat is, but like in that time, it was like 80% of Australians in the games industry lost their jobs. It wasn't just...
it was like devastating.
It was apocalyptic here.
Yep.
And so basically during that time, the last 2 games I'd made bombed. The boss comes up to me. I'm still like running the team. And he's like, you guys have... I forget. I've looked it up and quoted the number before, but like, you guys have 6, 9, 12 months, whatever it was, to make 200,000, or else best of luck, kind of thing.
Jeez. Okay. Final call kind of thing.
It was, yeah. And so, and at the time, the iPhone had just come out. So I actually didn't have an iPhone, but we were like, okay, we got to make a bunch of fast, quick games, and they need to be really simple. And I was like, I would also like to make a very pick-upable iPhone game, because that might be my portfolio, my CV. Like, I liked the idea that when I lost my job, because in my head it was inevitable, I could like pull out the iPhone that I didn't have, and people would be like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Oh, I'm a game designer. Look, this is something I made." And maybe that would one day like get me back into the industry. So that was kind of the mindset. And so I designed two games that my team made, and one was called Monster Dash, and the other one was Fruit Ninja. And so then obviously we released Fruit Ninja, and that thing just went, not immediately, but eventually went meteoric. It was. I
was going to ask, like, how did that develop? Right, like, because I remember, I remember Fruit Ninja. Like, it's wild. Like when we first started, I was like, first chatted on, because we're part of the Unity thing, right? So we've sort of touched base a few times, but yeah, whenever I saw you and realized, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And just curious, because I mean, it's a curious fact to have. Like, oh yeah, I just designed Fruit Ninja, right? Like one of the biggest games that has name recognition, I think, across, even for people that don't play video games, Fruit Ninja is recognizable. Like, how do you comprehend that, I guess? And then also, like, what was that timeline like from it being something you kind of just put out into the world to it becoming like one of the things that basically everybody was playing on their iPhones?
So like the timeline was like so my team was like 7 people, and more or less the way it worked was 3 people worked on Fruit Ninja, 3 people worked on Monster Dash, and I worked on both. And we made Fruit Ninja in 6 weeks, more or less. And especially at the time, it was like a simple game. Like at the time, there was only classic mode. It didn't even have combos. And again, we were good and fast at making things cheap and fast. And so we made that, and we released it. And at first, kind of like nothing happened. And then what happened was but we felt good about it. I was like, I think this is pretty good. And it was so the 2 games, the other one, Monster Dash, was like an endless runner. It was like Cannibal, but with guns, was the way it was always pitched. That was like the safe bet game, and Fruit Ninja was like the punt. You know what I mean? Like it was there's nothing really like this. It uses a very novel control scheme because, like I said, I'm really into like input as being like the main driver for how a game feels, and like letting that kind of direct what the game is. And so anyway, we released it, and kind of nothing really happened immediately. And then, I forget, it was something like we'd released it on like a Tuesday, and like, a couple of people played it and stuff, which was cool. And then we were sitting around having beers in the office on like Friday afternoon, and it was, the week we'd launched something. So we had a fair few beers. And then I went over to my computer, and I had like, the boss came over, and he was like, I just got an email from Apple asking for featuring art, and they need it like right now. So the artist had actually already gone home. So we had to get a cab to get him back. And we were all kind of half cut, and we put together the feature art and sent it to Apple that night. Wow. And so then it got featured like a couple of days later, and things started to pick up, and it was like we were selling like 100 copies a day. So it was 99 cents. We were selling like 100 copies a day, which already was like, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then, it started to get coverage. It was like in Touch Arcade and, all of that. And then it was selling like 1,000 copies a day. And it has that kind of growth where like it starts selling. And so it goes up in the charts. And especially back then, the charts mattered a lot for the iPhone. Yeah. And it like hit that critical mass and started to feed itself. And so then we were basically immediately we've got to like make updates for this. And so, we started shipping updates, and I worked on Fruit Ninja as kind of like the main, just still running the thing for.
Yeah, like the product lead, yes, basically. What would be
product
a product lead now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except I was doing that and running the Monster Dash project, which then which then after we did Jetpack Joyride.
I was going to lead to that. Like, that's the other infamous game that. Did you design that one then?
Yes.
If it was that the DNA then.
Yeah, Monster Dash was the DNA, and then so I ended up shipping like 20 something updates for Fruit Ninja, kind of all the way through to we added combos and then Zen mode and then arcade mode. And when we did arcade mode, and like arcade mode took me longer to design than the full game. Like I think I spent 4 or 5 months on arcade mode. So significantly longer. And then when that came out, that completely changed the growth of it again. It went like arcade mode kind of made it really kick into overdrive.
Why did it take you so long to design? Or why would you say it sort of took you so long to design the arcade mode? Like, what was specifically about it?
So the way that design mode came about, the way that arcade mode came about was we wanted something more complex. That originally we wanted it to have a little bit more of a meta about it.
Okay.
And so the template for it was Bejeweled Blitz on Facebook. Okay. So Bejeweled Blitz, by the way, dope as hell. Like that is good.
Just Bejeweled in general, just like Bejeweled.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The original Blitz was really good. Like, and they had it had like some really advanced features in it. Like you could kind of like pre-move pieces and stuff. And oh man, so good. And it had that little kind of thing where you would earn like some coins, and then you could buy like little upgrades to boost your score and all of that. So I originally was designing something like that, and it was always kind of like this 60-second mode, because Zen mode was 90 seconds, and I was like, I want to tighten it up even more and have it like really replayable. And I spent a long time, like you would slice star fruit during it, and you get like these star fruit tokens. That was kind of like the currency. And I did all of that and spent ages on it, and it was like pretty fun, but I really didn't like the way that it felt with currency in it. Like it was just like the vibes weren't right. And in a way that I found really difficult. Like to me, Fruit Ninja was like very pure in my mind. Like it was, it was so simple and stripped back that like layering things on top that weren't like embedded into the gameplay felt wrong to me. Even though it was fun and people were enjoying it, it just wasn't right. And so that's when then the power-up bananas, like instead of them being things that you bought and activated, the power-up bananas came in, and then there was the stacking mode, and then there was the streaking mode. Streaking like directly inspired / stolen from Bejeweled Blitz. You know, and it took me a long time to make it something that I felt really proud of, and that I felt like it really fit with what I wanted Fruit Ninja to be. And, you know, now, you know, so I worked on it for like 2.5 years, and then I was like, I need to do something else. And so it got moved onto another team, and obviously it's been live updated for
it's still going
years now. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is it the same studio then? Is that studio still?
Yeah, that's still Half Brick. Yeah, they're still here.
Okay.
And it took me a long time for me to be happy with it. And obviously the priorities and kind of the vision of that game changed a lot. Like, you know, during the time where I finished working on it, and then, you know, it obviously evolved, and, you know, a lot more people were involved at different points. And, you know, it's, but I had a really, and to be clear, like, it's not like I'm always right. Like, I wanted to stop working on Fruit Ninja. I wanted to leave Fruit Ninja in this, like, what I considered like this kind of like perfect state, which is a bad business case.
Yeah.
That's me, right? Like, I wanted it to be like, no, I'm I think this is it. I think we should stop working on it. And like, I got told by multiple people, that's fucking dumb.
Yeah, this isn't making us thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and at some point I'm like, well, I can't work on it because people want it to be, and I can only invest so much of my energy in protecting it because I also want to develop new things and things that are interesting to me. But like, yeah, I was very, even having like, that soft currency in it that was just for buying power-ups, I was like, I don't like this. And so that's how arcade mode became what it is now. But how it was at the time, I guess for context, like many, many, many years later, like years after I'd left Half-Brick, I was in, I was over going to Snapchat because, I mean, God, we'll eventually get to it. I worked at Snapchat for 4 years as well. So I was in the US and I went to a meeting in Vegas and I was flying back from Vegas and I saw a Fruit Ninja slot machine in the airport.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Vegas.
Yeah.
And I cried.
I saw those at GDC not long ago.
I found that so deeply upsetting.
I can imagine.
You know, it's and you know, like whatever, it's not mine, you know what I mean?
Right,
like,
but that is it's the divorcing yourself from your baby ultimately, right?
That's right.
That is it's probably not a unique story to you in the industry at all.
No,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
There are certain, I'm sure, people that have worked on IPs and birthed characters and seeing how their creation is evolved throughout franchises and stuff. It's a fascinating sort of like side effect of this industry, I suppose, or like the commercialization of games that makes it a necessary evil almost, you know? And that's not to say it's always a bad thing either, I suppose, right? There are obviously some IPs that change hands and turn into something magical, right? But like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But still, it's something you have to deal with, right?
What I will say is like, I'm extremely proud of the fact that this all happened during the GFC and like we were able to, and you know, like over a long period of time, it created so many jobs in Brisbane.
That's great.
So many jobs where there were people who needed jobs who were out of work. And like, you know, I'm
Luke Muscat, job maker.
Well, you know, I feel very proud that like Fruit Ninja, even if like Fruit Ninja got commercialized beyond what I would like as a creative, at least feel glad that it created a lot of like jobs and a lot of economy for the area in a way that it, you know, maybe wouldn't have if it had gone the direction that I wanted it to. So, you know, that's really good. But you would ask like earlier on, like, how do you kind of like deal with or like sit with that? Like definitely one of the hardest things has always been that people for a very long time, I mean, still like it is like generally how I get introduced when I get introduced to like new people. Like it's still people are like, he's good. And people immediately make assumptions. And, you know, the big assumption is that everyone imagines that I must be like really wealthy. And when I got like a couple of like pretty modest bonuses and I was on a fairly modest wage while I worked at Half-Brick, and that was it. So when and I mean, same for, you know, like, because obviously Jetpack Joyride was a monster as well. But like when I eventually left Half-Brick to start a new studio, an indie studio, I had saved a little bit of money. And then like after a couple of months, like I had $0 in my bank account and I was just racking up credit card debt, trying to get this new studio off the ground with 2 other co-founders. Like people, I remember like, what was it, 2012, I went to or 2013, one of those, I went to my 10-year school reunion, high school reunion. Okay. And everyone knew about Fruit Ninja and stuff by then. And it was kind of like, you know, just after the peak. And everyone was like, wow, you must, like, do you own a Ferrari now? Like, God, it must be so good. Like, you're so young and like you're set up for life. And I'm like, you should see the car I drove here in. Like, I can't run the, like, if the car has to stop. Like I have to pop the bonnet because the radiator fan doesn't work. It's barely holding. And people like for a very long time had this assumption that I was like really wealthy. And it still happens. Like people, I get introduced to people and then it comes up and then people are immediately like, oh, well, you must have made like tens of millions of dollars off Fruit Ninja. And it's like, that's really like, and that wasn't just difficult for me. That was difficult for, because the other two like really influential people on Fruit Ninja was Stephen Last was the programmer who programmed Fruit Ninja at like, I mean, he was 19, I think. Like he was so young. And Shaft McGuire, who was the artist. And, you know, it is exactly the same for them because, you know, they got essentially the same story. Like they're the other two really influential people who helped make that thing. And then there was obviously other people involved at like varying levels of involvement. But like, you know, for the three of us, we were really like that core three. And I know that would have been really difficult for them as well because it's exactly the same thing. It's like, oh, you must be rich. And it's like, how do you explain to people? And it's not like a really clean, easy story. And it's like, well, I'm not, but people want the clean, easy story and they want to believe that if you come up with a great idea, you get the reward. But it's just not what happens. So that has always been really difficult. The thing that has been good is I can, and you know, I use it in my videos all the time. I can like slip in like Fruit Ninja and Jetpack and literally my videos do better.
Oh yeah, no, it's going in this video somewhere, like in the thumbnail or in the title.
Yeah, like, exactly. And it's like, what do you do? And at some point, like I'm in my 40s now. At some point, that's going to be like completely irrelevant, but it's still relevant enough that like I do have that, and I use that because you know that was how we got investment for Pretty Great, which is like my first indie studio. It was like people were excited to be involved because we had that track record. So
so I mean let's talk about that a little bit. So what was the break then to go and found the studio, and then like tell me a little bit about, because is that the one that got acquired by Snapchat?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So myself, Phil Larson, and Hugh Walters left Halfbrick in, I want to say beginning of 2015, maybe, to start a new studio. For a lot of reasons, like Halfbrick had become pretty big by that point, and we basically wanted to do something similar to what we were doing at Halfbrick, but something that like we owned and we had control over. And so yeah, we left and like we were immediately, like I said, I was just running on credit card debt. We've working out of Phil's basement, basically, you know, just full ghetto startup mode. And eventually we were able to get some funding. And so we were actually funded by Matt Hall and Andy Sum, who are the creators of Crossy Road. Other Aussies. So they put in a bunch of money for a share of the company.
And did you meet, because that's an interesting point actually, just to quickly stop you there. Because people will be curious, like how do you get that kind of, like, is that you met them at a bar and sort of pitched them the company, or like, you know what I mean?
Hilariously, so they're also Aussies, they're Australians, they're down in Melbourne, right? I did not meet them in Melbourne. I met them in San Francisco. I was at GDC. I was at the infamous old Touch Arcade parties that were in the bar of the Marriott in downtown San Francisco. And I met Matt Hall, and it was pre-Crossy Road. And we had a really good chat. And Matt is very like, I love Matt, and he's very like straight talker kind of thing. And he was basically like, why are you at Halfbrick? You should just do this for yourself kind of thing. And this is before even we had started Pretty Great or anything. And so we stayed in contact, and then Crossy Road went off, we left, and then they were basically like, hey, like, you know, we talked to a bunch of companies for investment, including some Some that would have given us a lot more money, but would have been like, all right, you're doing like Silicon Valley style startup. Like you're going to grow this thing to the moon. You're going to have 100 employees. And we were like, that's exactly not what we want. And we talked to Matt and Andy, and they were like really aligned with like what we wanted to do. And so it was like we took significantly less money, but they got what we wanted to do, and we got to like keep true to that vision. So we'd been running for a few months already. Wasn't ages. It happened fairly quickly. And then once we had that, we were able to like get an office and like hire a couple of like employees. Because in the startup, we had 0 programmers, which is in general terrible idea, right? Like that's not typically how you would do a startup. I'm a designer by trade.
So you weren't programming at that point in time then? That's like...
No, I hadn't done any program. I used to program prototypes in Flash. I used to do ActionScript too.
ActionScript, yeah, that's what my first game was.
Yeah, dude, ActionScript the best. But I didn't do any programming, especially at Halfbrick, other than doing the occasional prototype, because we were in like this bespoke engine. It didn't have like the engine at Halfbrick, we didn't have an editor per se. Like it wasn't like that. Like I did not get my hands dirty at all because I couldn't. Like I couldn't even tweak variables for a long time. I had to like sit down next to a programmer and we would do it together. Wow. I only did whiteboards basically for 7 years or however long it was. So I did whiteboard design and that was it. And then I would sit next to a programmer and next to an artist, but I actually wasn't able to like input anything in unless it was like some of the early games where we had level editors. But yeah, it was but I did do programming at university and I was terrible at it. Like I that's how I kind of ended up in design, as I learned that I wasn't good at programming. So we started pretty great. And so our makeup was me as a designer, Hugh as like a artist, specifically like he's more of like a technical artist. And then we had Phil, who is marketing.
Okay.
Which is very strange, but like I don't regret that at all, because immediately Phil was able to start like raising the profile of our startup, which is how we got meetings with investors, which is how we eventually chatted with Matt and Andy. And then once we did get investment, we were able to hire our first full-time programmer. But before that, I was like, well, I guess I'm the programmer now. And I started doing a bunch of prototyping in Unity, learning C# for the first time and everything and all of that. So that was actually my first like contact with Unity was back then.
And this would have been like early Unity, right? So
pretty early, 2015. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Unity 4 or 3 or 4 or something?
Unity 4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was, compared to using our engine at Halfbrick, it was the first time I'd used an off-the-shelf engine. And I was like, oh, damn, this can do like a lot of different things. So that was really good. And so then, we ran pretty great for 3 years. We made 3 games in that time. We two single-player games, all phone games, which they all did decently well. And then we made...
Which game were those? What games were those?
So that was Land Sliders and Slide the Shakes, 2 slide-based games. And
I remember you talking about Slide the Shakes. Yep. Okay.
And again, like Land Sliders was this thing where you basically swiped the world. It was kind of like navigating a web page, and you were your character was in the center of the screen. So again, very, very much about the input, right? Like that's always what I really liked. So we did that, and then we did this third game called Crash Club, which was like this 32-player real-time online 3D car combat game. Which was like on the phone, which at the time, that was kind of like, that wasn't really a thing, right? And it was doing quite well. It was savage. It was like such a hard project. And I was like, how did
you do the networking for that? Like, were you using like a third party servers and stuff, or?
Yeah, we used 2 different backends. We used PlayFab back in the day for doing like the inventory management, but not like the real-time component. And then we used Photon, as like but that was really just like the server management. Like they had this other product called, I want to say it was called Quantum, which was like networked physics objects and all that. We used the very stripped back version and wrote all of our own servers and everything to run it. We did this very big mix of, it was really interesting. Like it was that we made it so that it would work and appear perfectly smooth down to like a 2G connection. So it worked with up to 500 milliseconds of lag. And the way we did that was like we used a lot of tricks, like one of the weapons was like a rocket launcher kind of thing. And what the server would do is the server cared about outcomes, but not how that outcome happened. And so the player would be like, you would basically like tap on like an enemy card or launch rockets at it. And so on your client, you're like, okay, I have tapped on the car. That means a rocket is going to hit it at 1 second in the future kind of thing. Because, the rocket would go like that kind of effect, right?
Yeah. It doesn't care about the bit in the middle. It just cares about the start and the end. Yeah, I'm actually doing that for Cabs of Chaos. I'm doing a very similar thing with how like my game, it doesn't care, because I wasn't going to do online for the game, but then I realized like, I built a replay system for it, which I've got a video on. And I was like, oh, well, the online is basically just what I've done for the replay system, but sent over a network.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm using netcode for game objects for that. And I'm able to do all the network actually, like the person hosting the game cares about, because it's just kind of peer-to-peer, but I wanted to make sure that it's like responsive. I don't really care about where the physics objects are at any given time. I just care about like, did somebody pick up a passenger? Did they drop them off at a destination?
Yeah.
And like that's going to be shared on most of them. So yeah, it's the same kind of thing. So it's interesting to hear. That's why I asked, because it's interesting to hear about how other people do this kind of thing. So
and so it was like able to be like, you could have the two phones next to each other and they'd be like in perfect sync. Like the rocket would hit at the exact same time, even though there was like 500 milliseconds of lag.
That's amazing.
Which was so sick. Like it was so painful to work on, but it was so rewarding as well. Like it felt so good to see it working. And so we did that and it kind of did quite well. It wasn't like getting as many downloads, but people who played it really played it, right? Like they played it for ages, and people actually bought in-app purchase for the first time I'd never been good at making games that have like actually make money, like make in-app purchases and all that. But people were like, and we had tournaments and, it was really fun, and that game was doing really well. So that's kind of where we're at, right? And so we've got our little team of, at this point we were like 7 or 8 people total for the company. And we were trying to figure out what was next as well. We're running these games and being like, all right, what do we want to do next? And it was as the App Store was starting to change. So we were starting to think about, well, what's next for us, because you could feel the pinch coming for mobile even back then.
Like the race to the bottom kind of thing, do you mean?
No, I mean, race to the bottom had been years and years before. It was more like the rise of like performance marketing and like paid user acquisition and the kind of the crunch between like cost per install versus like average revenue per paying user, and like the rise of the acronyms.
Okay, all the acronyms that, you meet somebody at GDC that uses those acronyms and you're like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and so, I could already feel that like it was going to be soon a business that I wouldn't want to be really involved in. And so we were exploring, like maybe we would do VR, maybe we would do Steam. I made like a bunch of different prototypes for stuff. And then separately, Snapchat, I get this message from someone, like a good friend in the industry I've known for a long time, and basically being like, hey, I had this really interesting conversation with Snapchat. They're looking for a studio that can make a real-time multiplayer game that's really lag tolerant in 3D, and it was like really strange how much it was like, that's us.
Yeah, you have like serendipity there. You're like, wait a minute, you're just explaining the game that we made. Yeah.
And so we took this call with like with the main person who was like basically exploring the idea of bringing games to Snapchat. And it was like, it was really weird. It was like, I also, like, at that time was really thinking that HTML5 was going to be the next thing. And it turns out they were also banking on that. And so basically what ended up happening is we got acquired by Snapchat to be basically making, we were kind of like the first party studio for making games at Snapchat, if that makes sense. So Snapchat's plan was to like create and launch a instant games platform, which was already a thing on like Facebook and Messenger and all that. The idea being that like you would just, you would be in a group chat and you could just press a button and a game would immediately launch for you, and it would be 3D and multiplayer and using like HTML5 with this overlay and everything. And so, yeah, we were like, you know what, maybe this is the next thing. This seems pretty exciting. And, it was, we ended up going along with that. And, for us, it was like we were able to stop running our own company, which was like very stressful. And, at the time, still, we were assuming like a lot of risk all the time. And it was like, all right, we can get some reward for our risk at this point. So yeah, we signed that and started working for Snapchat. And so the other thing was like, we weren't just making games though, we were helping, like, because there was a bunch of really good tech people at Snapchat, but no games people. So we were kind of like the internal experts, I guess. We were like helping guide kind of like the building of that platform. And, there would be like a bunch of third parties making games for it as well. But we had been those third parties in other relationships. So we were able to bring a lot of like, well, this is how games teams work, and this is how publishers work, and this is why no one likes each other. And, like the idea was for us to bring a bunch of...
Here's how to not be THQ.
Yeah. So yeah, we and they also, like, part of when we were negotiating, they really wanted us to move to Los Angeles and work out of the headquarters there in Venice. But I didn't want to. The way, when we built Pretty Great, we did it as 3 co-founders, like deliberately, so we could have like a tie break kind of thing situation. And so one of us was keen, one of us was very not keen. That was me. And the third person kind of didn't really care. It's like, so it was like he wasn't very useful as like a tiebreaker in that situation. But ultimately we stayed in Brisbane and then built like a studio here making games for Snapchat. And at the beginning, it was insanely hard. It was like really challenging, and it was really surreal being a part of like the tech world. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what stories I can and can't tell.
Right. Yeah. We don't need to go into it too much. I think a lot of people could imagine what being inside of the tech world is like.
Here's what I will say is, at the time, it was when Silicon Valley, like the show, like the Mike Judge show, was a thing. I loved watching Silicon Valley. Once I joined Snapchat, couldn't watch it, couldn't do it anymore.
Too real.
And you're like, that's so ridiculous, so outrageous. And then you're like, oh no.
Is it? Is it? Okay.
and so to kind of get to where I am at now, eventually I left. I burnt out at Snapchat, took some time off, basically realized like I gotta get back to just being like hands-on creative. The other thing was like, at that point, what I had done for a really long time is be like the lead designer / like product owner of games for 10 years or whatever at that point. And I kind of felt like I wasn't learning that much anymore. Like, every project has its own challenges and everything, but I was like, it just felt like I wasn't learning as much as I could be anymore. And so that's ultimately the big reason why I decided to go solo dev, because I was like, oh my God, I haven't programmed really in any serious way in 15 years or whatever. I'm terrible at art. I'm going to have to learn so much so quickly if I do solo dev. And so that was kind of why I decided to go solo. And also because of the acquisition, I was in like the extremely fortunate position for the first time in my life of having some like financial stability.
Right.
It was the first time I had the option of being like full solo indie. So yeah, I feel super privileged and grateful to be able to do that. So yeah, anyway, that's sort of how I ended up like where I am now, where I'm doing like solo indie dev.
And so would you say you have any like big game design? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit with the first studio. Would you say, throughout that whole process, was there any big game design kind of, and I guess business, um, you know, practices, I suppose, or ethos that you took with you moving forward? Like any lessons that you learned from any of the games to sort of either learn, like to either make sure you do next time or don't do next time, because I think a lot of people will carry that with them from job to job, right? Like you pick up things, you go, okay, when I start again, I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we had seen like even from when we left Half-Brick to start Pretty Great, because Half-Brick had at the time like two owners kind of thing, and we had kind of seen like it. I think it's really important that we like really think about. And Half-Brick had been running for a very long time, and then eventually like everyone wants different things, and we were like, well, that's going to be inevitable at Pretty Great. So like let's be really intentional with how we structure the governance of this company. And that's why we had three co-founders, like even split. So we got a tiebreaker vote, and no one can. We all kind of have to stay aligned for those reasons. And so there was always things like that. I would say like throughout everything, the things that I have always held on to is like kind of like act fast and decisively and then own it. I really never want to be like, I never want to be like on a project that takes like 6-7 years kind of thing. Okay. Like I feel really lucky. Like I've been doing games for like almost 20 years, and I think I've shipped like, I don't know, like 16 games or something. Like, and I don't want to be like, I have friends who have been in the industry for 20 years and they've shipped 3 games kind of thing. And sometimes, it's because things get canceled and things like that. But other times it's like the entire time they've been working has been on things that did ship, and it's really long. And to be clear, it's not like I'm glad that those games exist. I want there to be games that took someone. Did you see that I'm going to mess it up. Is it Animata Design or Animata Design? They released Phonopolis recently, which is like all of the art is made out of papercraft and then stop motion.
Oh, wow.
I think they said that game is 12 years in the making for them.
But you could look at something like that, I'm sure, and go, okay, I can see how this takes that long to make.
Oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. It would take that long, and I am glad that exists. I want those games. I just don't want to make
It's not for you. Yeah.
No, and I also think that honestly, my strengths don't lie in production execution. Like you could give me 12 years and I think that I'm not going to make the most outstanding polished experience you've ever played. I think that my strengths are in like novel and interesting ideas, and making lots of games relatively quickly helps me play to that strength rather than playing to my weakness. So Feed the Deep was like 18 months. Golf is going to end up being about 18 months as well. And that's like, then there's also like 6 months before both of those are prototyping lots of ideas. And I feel pretty good about that. But
yeah, I think as an indie, that's a sweet spot. I mean, like the game I just come off of was 5 years.
Yeah, wow.
Part of that, there's so many reasons, and I'll go into it in the future at some point, I'm sure. But like a good 2 years of that was us just reinventing the game 3 times because we were trying to figure out what it was. And just that is the nature of sometimes that is what the nature of game design is.
Yeah.
But I am somebody who is definitely more, in that camp of what you're talking about. I think where if you can, I think you have to learn that yourself in terms of what you're capable of doing in a time and like what your scope can be. And I think we can go into that a little bit more detail, especially with normal golf game, because I think that'll be interesting to talk about. But and I'd be interested to hear about scope for Feed the Deep too. But like, I think being able to identify that, and I think that comes with working on a few things. But that scope of 18 months, at least as a target, is such a strong deadline to hit, especially if you've had a little bit of prototyping beforehand. You go, okay, I'm going to execute on this now and spend and scope what 18 months can look like for that. Because I fully agree. Also, just from an attention span standpoint, I think that's about the time length for me personally before I start really wanting to work on something else.
Yeah, I will say as well, I think that like one of the other strengths that I have is being able to like commit and hit milestones and deadlines. And I, when we did pretty great, once we knew what our first project was going to be, Landsliders, we set the release date on day one of production, and then and we hit that release date.
Wow. So how much did you cut?
That's the thing. We cut plenty, but it was like, that's what we got really good at Halfbrick, was like the game's coming out in June. Like that's it. It's like, you don't push back or anything. And so I like that style of like having to make interesting design choices to bring scope down to like fit within a constraint rather than expanding the constraints to fit an idea.
Goldfish fits the size of the bowl kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, again, it's not like that there's a right and wrong way. It's just like, that's kind of my style and kind of, I think, plays to my strengths and also just what I enjoy doing. So yeah, I mean,
there's an economical argument for that too.
Yeah. And I mean, I also think like the industry always has been, but is so hit driven. And I'm personally like a fan of getting more shots on goal rather than taking one really big expense, like putting it all in on one shot. I like the idea of like kind of spreading that risk across a few different titles and a few different ideas. It's for a bit that worked really good on mobile because it just had to be an interesting idea, decently executed. Now it's kind of like, I think it's easy for there to be a trap where like there's actually a ceiling. Not a ceiling. There's a floor that you have to reach before you can be successful, and you could stop every production before you reach that floor. But I think still at the moment you see all the time like games that are janky and not super well executed performing really well. So I still think that it is viable to take lots of shots on goal as long as you're actually doing something interesting with each shot so it has a chance to score. Again, just personal preference. That's the way I like to kind of structure not just my games from the creative side, but also from a business side. I'm not a like I guess like we did when we left Halfbrick, we put all the chips on the table and like, pretty much put ourselves down to like bankruptcy before it all worked out. But now I'm very much not a fan of that, from a production standpoint or a business standpoint. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's I think I agree quite strongly with that. Okay. So then you took that forward with you into starting your studio, which like, how did you get to Feed the? I mean, I guess how did you get to Feed the Deep? Like, what was the prototype there? I assume again, big input thing with that game. So.
So the way that I structured my solo thing right from the beginning, I knew what I was going to do, which was like basically the business is going to be like in two parts. There's obviously like the game production part, which is the main part, but the other part was to start a YouTube channel.
The YouTube, yeah.
So the reason to start the YouTube channel was, I mean, there was a few reasons, but like one was like I really wanted to have like a relationship with the audience. I didn't want to be fully reliant on like, wow, I hope PC Gamer writes about my game. Like I didn't want to be like completely reliant on external outlets. I wanted to like be able to own that relationship with the audience and have that kind of that direct relationship that doesn't go through anything. And so that manifested in a bunch of ways. Like one is like there isn't a company name. Like the company name is Luke Muscat kind of thing. I didn't even want it to be like, it's like, oh, my name's Luke and I'm like, they know the company and then I'm like kind of speaking for the company.
Are you incorporated?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you incorporated as your name or like doing business as Luke Muscat?
Doing business as. Yeah,
okay.
There is like an actual like corporation so that, it's like set up how it's supposed to be. But even that is still just like, it's just like a variation of my, it's like my name, Enterprises, PTY, blah, 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 blah. And so like I really wanted it to be, and it was the other reason like I decided I didn't want to be a faceless channel, like, a channel with like an avatar or just voiceover. I was like, no, do you know what I mean? Like I want this to be like as I want that gap between the audience and the developer to be as close as possible. So
I've moved into that, to be honest. Like I was doing a lot. I mean, most of my early stuff was voiceover just because I felt strong on the scripting side of it, and I could just do voiceover more easily than filming. But the more
to be clear, I fucking hate being on camera. Like I do not like filming. I hate having to set up lights. I don't have a dedicated space. Like this is my office, and then when I have to film, I have to set up stuff and like put up some soundproofing.
Same. I mean, this is the first, like I've now got this in a point where there's a setup. Like I can turn my lights on and off now with a Stream Deck.
Oh, nice.
And I've set it like and this is, I'm talking into like a teleprompter right now. And I've got like a really, like a, and I'll send you this because I think it's interesting for people that do this. I bought like a specific screen off of Amazon that is basically like an iPad, but it's only a monitor and it's like a tiny size, and then it's projecting. And I've used some software on my computer to create a fake second screen that I then mirror using another piece of software and then project onto this thing through HDMI that can then allow me to have a monitor that I can just drag stuff on. It's crazy. It took me ages to set up, but once I got it done, it's like it's now just always there. So that has opened up that ability to now be on camera a bit more.
I still I only film. I just use my phone and it's on a tripod and I try and memorize the script and then I just send it. That's it.
I mean, it's like anytime I try, I'm very rambly, I find naturally. My brain goes a lot faster than I can let words out. So it just... unless I've had something to drink or like, it's just, so I find getting my thoughts down on paper first. And then sometimes that I use that and then loosely just speak a bit more freely, but it's really hard for me to script. Also, just because of the YouTube machine, I find that the videos where I'm scripted and it's rehearsed and like highly polished editing and stuff like that, they always tend to do a bit better. So that's part of it too, which is always why that transition into doing video stuff was a question of mine, because I was like, well, there's a little bit of that I have to take control, but I also wanted to move away from just the faceless thing to because we're moving into that thing where all of the voiceovers are AI now on YouTube, and the faceless thing is untrustworthy now versus before it had a bit more of a presence, and that was kind of the format. But so I'm kind of just trying to mix in for the same reason, right? Like, and a bit more direct to audience so people can get to know me, and that's why I want to do this podcast, to talk more about game development with people. Be just a bit more personable, right? So I fully can understand, exactly what you mean about the direct sort of face-to-face element of it.
And like I said, it's like I really don't like. I have started putting less filmed stuff in and doing a little bit more just voiceover, just because it's a little bit easier production-wise for me now. But
I think it's the mix, right? It's like landing on the mix of both. It's cutting back.
That's right.
And that's how I've kind of scripted things, where it's like, this will be VO, this will be cut to video, just a bit more formatted in that way, and just having that flexibility.
Yeah, totally. And then, the other reason that I started the YouTube channel was like, I wanted to use it essentially as like an audience validation tool. So the whole idea was I would make prototypes, and then when I got a signal in one way or the other from the audience of like, oh, this game actually seems really interesting, that's how I would know that's what I'm going to work on as my full game. So when I started, I did I did 2 prototypes, and immediately it was like so valuable, because the second prototype I did was called Luck of the Draw. and it's like this Russian roulette auto battler is how I would call it. And like, I think like when I was working on it, I'm like, damn, this
is great.
Rules. This is great. I would burn down like a full 18-month dev cycle on this so happily. I was so into it. And like I released that video and it just, no one cared. Like no one played, like barely anyone played it on itch. The video didn't get good pickup. And to be clear, there's like a lot of mixed signals here, right? Like it could just be like, well, the thumbnail sucks. It could be that the game is fine, but the thumbnail sucks. But I was like, look, I got to try something. And so then I did this prototype for Feed the Deep, right? And I put it out there. And so like I make the prototype and then I also put it on Steam. And I was like, 'cause with the idea of like, you know, probably I'll just release it for free a little bit further down the line. Because I really liked the project, but I was like, I liked the last one and the last one went really poorly. And I put the devlog up and I put it out there. And it was just like immediately, it was just like, it was like crickets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting here like, okay, that's 3 down. I still haven't found something that works. I got to come up with something else. And so I start coming up with this golf game. And I'm like, the whole thing with the golf game is I'm going to really think about a game that's going to make really good devlogs. Like that's the thinking of it. It's like, I'm going to come up with a game that will produce good B-roll and be interesting to talk about for devlogs. So I start doing that. And then all of a sudden, like the feed the deep starts picking up, right? Like the devlog starts like getting a bit of traction.
Just the first one you made, the first devlog?
The first one that I'd released and I'd already written off. And then the game starts getting some wish lists. And then it starts doing better and it starts getting more wish lists. And then like next minute, the video has like 500,000 views, which like, I had 10,000 subscribers, whatever at the time. And the game has 12,000 wish lists. And I'm like, guess I'm making Feed the Deep. So, because I'm like, that's it. That's like the signal I was looking for, right? Like the signal of like, there's something interesting here. So I basically stopped working on the golf game and I'm like, let's lock in. We're making Feed the Deep. And I basically committed to bringing Feed the Deep to like a full kind of production. So yeah, ended up being about 18 months of work on Feed the Deep. I managed to get like a little bit of funding for Feed the Deep through like the screen agencies here in Australia. So both Screen Queensland and Screen Australia were able to like help contribute to the development costs. And then, that's sort of how Feed the Deep kind of came to be. Feed the Deep, interestingly, like to me, feels a bit like when I made, so when I did Fruit Ninja and Monster Dash was like that safe bet. I think of Feed the Deep in a very similar way. Like Feed the Deep does a bunch of interesting things, but at its heart, it's like underwater cave diving roguelike. You're like,
understandable. It's an understandable.
I pretty much get what it is, right?
Yep.
And you know, I think that's one of the reasons that the devlogs did good for Feed the Deep too, because it's an easy player fantasy to understand and like it's quite relatable. So anyway, that's how kind of Feed the Deep happened. And I mean, like that's sort of still going on. Like I did a mobile port of that. It'd be almost a year ago now. So I ended up bringing it to iOS and that's done surprisingly well. Like I think I spent...
Is it but it's a full price game?
It's a try before you buy, also known as like a demo and then a purchase to upgrade.
Purchase game,
yeah. I think that did like... I spent 8 weeks doing that port because I had to do quite a lot to do the port. Like it's different controls and everything, obviously, and there's like this like contextual kind of like it's a whole different input system in a whole bunch of different ways. I spent 8 weeks doing that, and I think that's made like I'd have to look, but I think proceeds is like 70 grand.
That's great.
It's really good. And I'm
the
like,
ROI on that is great.
It's incredible. And I was like, well, there's no way. Like, like mobile's dead, baby. Like
Yeah.
there's
I've been hearing things, man. Like I think there is a slight resurgence for people looking for like the non
yeah,
FTP model, right? Like
yeah,
people are willing to put money in, especially where phones are at now with what they can play, the
yeah,
quality of games. I've heard of this is not an uncommon story, especially within the past year or so, from developers being like,
yeah.
oh, it like made money on mobile that I didn't think was possible. So it's interesting to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I've been really surprised. And I mean, you know, and it's funny because like, you know, I joke to people, it's like, I can't get away from being a mobile developer because there's no doubt to me that one of the things with anything that I make, I mean, you know, if you look at Feed the Deep, you can see it. It doesn't have that like, you can kind of feel like the mobile DNA in it a little bit. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's got like the fairly like bright, blocky kind of like colors and style to it. It's got like it's not like this crunchy, it's not Factorio, is I guess what I want to say. It's not like this many stacked layers systems and, you know, like with this kind of like gritty look to it. It's you know, like my DNA kind of comes through in it, which, you know, like as it should, I guess. But you know, yeah. So that's probably part of the reasons that it like came to mobile like quite
Mm-hmm.
well. I'm also just really proud of how well the input ended up working on it, because I kind of put it off for a bit. I was like, "There's no way it'll work," and then it ended up working. And
It's fun when you surprise yourself like that.
yeah, yeah, it's really nice. So
So I've got a few questions about Feed the Teeth before we move on.
yeah, yeah, please do.
So just generally, like, how was that development process for you? And what would you say were some of the biggest challenges? And then just from like you know, to really go into the things I think the audience will be interested in. Technically,
Yeah.
how did you put that together? Because I think a game like that with the scale of, you know, especially it being a Unity game, I think is interesting to build like the 2D aspect where you have this quite sprawling, I would say, level or series of levels, right? Was it procedural?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like that definitely presents challenges of making sure people don't get stuck or like you make impossible levels, right?
Yeah.
So could you dive into those a little bit?
Sure thing. Yeah. So so I used a whole bunch of tricks that I used on previous games for Feed the Deep. So like just because it's like the procedural.
Right. I guess you've got procedural GNA in the other game. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So the way that the procedural stuff works in Feed the Deep, because you're right, it's like it's really hard to make that not be. There's two things. It's hard to make sure that you don't like, you know, create like an impossible level or whatever, but that's pretty solvable. Like you can basically like reanalyze the level and make sure that nothing's wrong with it, right? Like you could just like A star through the whole thing. I think one of the bigger things with procedural generation that I think is a bigger problem that people forget about is that if you just actually randomize everything, it's like not very interesting. It just becomes like a bunch of noise, and noise, like if you squint at static, it just looks gray, you know, like it actually becomes very uniform very quickly and doesn't actually feel chaotic. So the way that Feed the Deep works is it's very much based on, and because, you know, I'd done other games with this previously, but like the way I first learned about this technique was from Spelunky, like OG HTML Spelunky, because there's a great article somewhere that shows how the level generation of that works. And it's a little interactive tool, and you can like generate Spelunky levels like in your web browser.
Oh,
and the way it works is like, instead of trying to like go through like, all right, I've got this big, I don't know what it is, call it like 100 by 100 tile grid. Let's like generate something. You're like, all right, forget about the tiles. Let's start with the rooms. And like, let's generate the rooms. And so the way that Feed the Deep works is it goes like, if it's a bigger level, let's go like, there's 16 rooms. It's 4 by 4 grid, right? Hang on, let me get in frame. It's like a grid of 4 by 4, right? Place the start somewhere around here. And then, you know, like on a simple level, place the end somewhere here. So now what we're going to do is place like a bunch of like walls between those rooms. And it's like, so we'll place a few and then do like a really simple check to make sure we haven't accidentally like walled off the start or the end. And now we know that we can kind of get through. And then we go, all right, for each of those, like let's procedurally generate like a room. And the rule for like this top room is it needs to have access at the top because that's like the top. There's a wall to the left, but there's an opening to the bottom and an opening to the right. So these 3 spaces have to be open. So you kind of get like this makeup of the room. And then if you do that for all of them, you know that the rooms are going to link up. Mm-hmm. Then what it does is instead of just doing like, you know, people always like would message me and be like, yeah, you should do like a remarching type thing. That sounds too complicated for the way my simple brain works. The way I did it is like I build in Photoshop all of these tiles. And so these little tiles, they're like little images. And it's like, here is all of the, like so, you know, if it was like open, 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 and then closed, it's essentially like a T intersection shape, right?
Yep.
I would build all of these textures that are like a T intersection, and I just use the blue channel of it. And so black means there's definitely a wall there, 100%. Bright blue, so full strength in the blue channel, that means there's definitely water there. So as long as there is a shape that connects those three areas, it will definitely you'll definitely be able to reach the room below and the room to the right.
Interesting.
And so already you can do that, and you can just make like a whole bunch of different T intersection shapes, right?
Yeah.
Then the extra layer on that is you can essentially use the different shades of blue as a probability map and be like, well, okay, if it's like half strength in the blue channel, that means there's a 50% chance that tiles will be in this section. So then you can create a bunch of variation. The reason I really like doing it this way, which obviously gives you like a lot more authorship, is because a T intersection feels really boring if it's always just there's like a smattering of stuff. But what you can do is like, well, okay, one of the T intersections I'll make is just like a perfect, like super narrow tunnel because that will feel a particular way. Another one, it'll be like a cavern that just has like these little openings on the end. Another one will be like, well, what if there's the cavern, but in the middle, there's like this other like little kind of almost mini maze you can get stuck in there. And you can give like these different like spaces, different feelings and play different ways through kind of like the design and the shape of it and how you're kind of like visually drawing it.
Yeah.
And so then you put all that in the game. The game has like this big pool to pick from. It picks from it randomly, rotates it, sticks it in, and then it does that for all of the different rooms. And by the time you do all of that, it feels so random, but you do get these like, you're in this really tight space where it feels really like confusing and claustrophobic, and then you come through and you're all of a sudden in this quite spacious kind of like open area, and it creates like these really different feelings than just if everything was like higgledy-piggledy, like randomized stuff. So yeah, that's how the procedural generation worked. It's very authored in many ways in Feed the Deep. It works really well. I like as someone who works very visually, like I like having control over that by just like literally drawing stuff out rather than relying purely on math. And when I'm in the editor, I can kind of see patterns to it, right? Like you're like, there's a part of you as a developer that is like, oh, this doesn't feel random enough because I recognize that like kind of spiral piece. But then you're in the game, it's really dark. You can only see a sliver of it. You're not looking at the entire map in like full lit through 100 iterations. It feels insanely random, like as a player. Like that's you gotta not look at it as a developer.
Yeah, you gotta take a little bit of a step back a little bit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I get that. That's cool.
And to be clear, like, I mean, I think it's a good system, but so I've got a team in New Zealand who is porting Feed the Deep at the moment to like Switch and like a bunch of other platforms. And so, you know, they've had to do like a little bit of like getting in the code base, just to not much because it's Unity, it's pretty easy to port. But they've, you know, obviously had to like change a few things here and there. And like the thing I said was like, do not fuck with the level generation system, because it is this spaghetti code garbage.
It's a video
and
game.
I was like, it's not that I don't trust you to do that. It's that I don't even touch it. It's like, once I finished writing it, I'm like, I cannot. It's so inscrutable. It's so messy.
But it worked.
But it works, and it does exactly what it needs to. But I'm like, there are dragons here. Like,
why waste time refactoring that when it worked, right?
Stuff has to happen in the exact right order, and you change something, and I don't even know why it doesn't work out of order, but it doesn't. Because the other thing is that it all has to be, oh my God, why can't it has to be deterministic as well?
Yes.
Like everything in the game, because the save system, all it does is it's like, here is a level seed, and here's what's changed. And so like, the generation has to be perfectly deterministic for the save system. So yeah, I'm like, do not touch anything inside this box.
What would you say that then was, one of the challenges from working on Feed the Deep that you kind of maybe didn't expect, or like tried to work around?
So, I mean, like the challenge that I did expect was the art. I'm just not, I consider myself a designer by trade, is how I would say it. But I've gotten okay at programming. No one's going to look at my code and be like, wow, he's so smart. But I'm like pretty good at like getting stuff done fairly quickly. And like, I started an action script too. That probably tells you everything you need to know about how I code.
Me too, man. Yep. So
but I'm fairly proficient. Like I can make things happen fairly quickly. Art, I'm just like, I think I'm very good at working with artists because I'm quite good at getting a particular look, but getting the actual like to paper is not my thing. Like I'm really not.
Did you do the art for Feed the Deep?
Most of it. I did get some help.
Okay.
Yeah. I had 2 artists give me some help.
I mean, it looks great. Like it was
the poster in the background. Like I didn't draw that. That was like a great artist, Craig. He did a great job. And then like, the main diver was actually Hugh Walters, who did pretty great with me. He drew the diver for me. And I probably did like most of what's on screen I drew, but then I got like a bunch of like key, like this needs to be good art done by other artists.
Yes. Yeah.
But I knew that was going to be hard. The thing that was the unexpected thing that was easily the hardest about it is just the fact that, I've made a lot of games. Making games is hard. But when you're doing it on your own, it hits different. And then even though it had like contractors come in to help with a few things, they're not living and breathing it. And you don't have anyone who's like in that with you in the same way.
Keeping the ship on track sort of thing, would you say? Like
no, more like having the shared experience and like of doing something really hard and like doing it. I would talk to people about how hard it is. And they're like, they sympathize but don't empathize, right? Even people that I have worked on games with and shipped games together, doing it solo like hits so different in a way that really surprised me and that I found really challenging. And it's just like, I had a couple of weeks after it launched, I had a launch party for the game. And that was great, to be clear. Like a bunch of people came and everyone was like very supportive. But you're not like, yeah, we did it with someone else.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? You're just like, I did it and it was really hard and there's no one really understands that experience. And like obviously other solo developers understand their experience. But like in terms of that, like this is a thing that happened and that we did and overcame together. Not having that kind of that like emotional and mental support of like because that's the thing, it's not actually like peers. There's like plenty of people who do similar things, but the people who are in that trench with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say it's about being in the trenches together. If you've come from, specifically hearing what you've talked about, right? Like you've come from your like formative years in the games industry, or the camaraderie that, from what I can tell, was the thing that kept you going, right? In the trenches. So I can fully imagine how much of a like culture shock, I for lack of a better term, feels to do it on your own instead, right?
The other thing that I found really hard, surprisingly, was the design, which is weird because that should be the thing I'm good at. And it is, but so previously, you know, the way it would work is like I said, I would do everything on whiteboards, and then I would go and work with programmers and artists on implementation and tweaking and integration. But now that it's just me doing everything, it's so hard not to fall into like a productivity bias trap, where it's like it's really difficult for me to step away from the computer and spend a whole day on a whiteboard or in a notebook. And because previously I would do that easily because the game is still progressing, because, you know, the rest of the team is working on the game. And, you know, I would tee up work for them and then they'd be implementing that while I design the next thing. Now it's like, it feels good to be at the computer improving the game by putting code in or art in. But when I'm designing, that day, nothing is happening. And I found it incredibly difficult to create space to actually do the thing that I'm good at. And as a result, I didn't do enough of it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Was there something in the game that you wish you'd spent more time on then? If that makes you, if you've come to that conclusion?
I had this sense the entire time on Feed the Deep that there was something not quite ideal, like not quite right about it. And I think a very large part of that comes down to the key premise of it, which is that you have to go back up for air, which means you spend a lot of time backtracking. And, you know, the backtracking is something that makes it interesting because it's terrifying when you get lost. But if you play really safely...
I played it very safely.
Yeah.
I'm just a big wuss though, so like I'm an outlier there.
And there's part of that I like. I like that you can like express it in like different styles of play, but it never felt quite fully resolved from a design standpoint that would be like interesting challenges to like an interesting like challenge or novelty about like that would help slide with like the play style spectrum that would make it like really interesting in all directions. So to be clear, like I like the game, I think it's good, but normally if the only thing I was doing was like the design, I feel like I would have spent more time cooking on that. And instead I spent more time actually getting the fucking thing to work and to run.
I think the thing is, so I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I want to talk about this some more, and I don't know whether it's going to be another video here on the channel or something, but I think from a design standpoint, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because actually, what I'm hearing is you now have an impetus to make a sequel to the game where you can iterate and potentially explore some of those things that were unexplored in the original, right? Because what you've got here is a fundamental system that seemingly people have enjoyed and has done, from what I can tell, even from what you're talking about the mobile port, like successful enough, I would say, from the sounds of it.
Yeah, it's done decently well. Yeah.
So, you know, and as indies, I'm sure we are people who like, well, I just want to work on something completely new and interesting, right? But potentially there's that space to come back to it, or at least explore that in the future, you know, someday maybe, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that the most common request I get is for like an infinite mode where it's like you can keep going infinitely deep. And the thing is like that was the original intention. Like that was always what it was like. It was always going to be more of like a like full roguelite where it was like they weren't like the level structures with the twists. It was like those twists were going to be different builds you could make essentially, and it would be like kind of like an infinitely deep, or near enough to, I guess like I would call it like Noita deep, you know what I mean? Like I've never reached the bottom of that, but you can just kind of keep going. I know there is an end, but I would say the vast majority of people, it feels,
when it feels like there isn't,
right,
yeah.
That was always the intention. It would be more like Noita in terms of like structure, but it became clear to me that I didn't know how I was going to. There was just like a bunch of tensions in the design of like supporting all of the different builds in an interesting way in every different situation, while also like, potentially it's like, is it just that like the shop and the surface area pushes down with you and it becomes like this sliding window or something? But ultimately, like the level structure solved a few different problems in terms of like giving me like clear different builds that the player could like mess with,
right,
without them having to like be, it was, I could fence them off in a way that it would definitely be interesting with this build in this situation. So, that's something that potentially, but the problem is like, if the game did really well, I would be like, all right, well, maybe I would come back to a sequel.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like it did well enough. I'm really proud of it. I'm really glad I made that game. But it probably doesn't feel like it didn't demonstrate like that it had enough headroom that I would go in again. And
interesting.
That's kind of like my general feeling about it is, it was also like, there were a lot of things that people requested for the game that I put in that I ended up taking back out because they just weren't fun. Like really tight, people wanted like the really tight spaces. I did so much work on that, and it's just like actually not enjoyable. And the fact that you have to like maneuver the loot around like physically in the space.
Yeah, it would get stuck, I imagine.
Yeah, it's literally the loot is bigger than you are. So it's like a huge constraint for your mobility, which is interesting in a bunch of ways, but it does like remove a lot of the more interesting things you can do in terms of like creating like tight and claustrophobic spaces. Anyway, like I said, I feel like I would have spent more time on that. I mean, I know I would, because it was 18 months. And I'm obviously thinking about it all the time as I'm making it. But there were plenty of other games that were made in a lot shorter amount of time where I would have spent total more dedicated design hours on, because I didn't have to do the marketing, the YouTube channel, the programming, the art, the accounting, like.
Yeah. So you'd say, I mean, it's just a learning curve, right? And adapting, I guess, your skill set to doing that.
Yeah.
But would you say you've figured out sort of a good balance there now?
Nah. I think it's better, but like the productivity bias is real. It's really difficult for me to.
I mean, I would argue that maybe inherently does allow you though to make talking. We've been talking this whole time about sort of economical design decisions and stuff. I would argue that maybe you not having the time to go and do that design means that you're making really economical choices in what you're doing potentially, or
maybe
even at least like in the triaging, in the internal triaging, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I at least it means I know how easy or hard something is. You know what I mean? Like it's I'm never like I can always, because it's a direct line between idea and implementation.
Like, I have to do this now.
But then, I think about like going way back to when we were talking about Fruit Ninja and the arcade mode. Like I spent months to essentially like cut and simplify a feature, including like, deleting so much work that gone into it. And I don't think that as a solo developer trying to make things in an 18-month timeline, I can do that level of like extremely like critical design, even though the end point is like extremely economical. It wasn't necessarily economical to get there in that case. So, it's easier in some ways and more difficult in others. But yeah, it's I also find so far with all of my games that I've done as solo, I have less of I obviously know what the game is, and I know kind of roughly where it's going, but the games are less fully formed in my mind when I'm
more
making
exploratory.
them. Yeah. Whereas I would often be like, and there's quite a lot like that. Like Jetpack Joyride changed so many times during the design and the development of it, like heaps of times. But broadly speaking, I had like a clearer sense of exactly what the game was. And I just find that, part of it is also like the YouTube thing though, right? Whereas before it would be like, we made a game and it's out now. And that was it.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, if you want to check out my prototype, and is it, you kind of like presenting it to like a wide general audience constantly along the way. Obviously, you always like present it to an audience as you're developing it internally in like a studio, but that's not a general audience. Like it's a specific development audience, which means it's a very different experience, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. It's been very interesting doing solo dev. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I love it. I love that process, that exploratory process. I think
I don't know that I do love it for what it's worth.
Okay.
It's an experience that I'm extremely glad that I have had and I'm continuing to have, but I don't think this is my forever by a long shot. Like,
do you think you're going to grow into a bigger team and you want to turn that into... I
think I'll just need to do something different. Like it's I have a the reason I'm hesitating to bring this up is because I feel like it seems like I'm trying to do like a humble brag or something. I promise it's not. It's just like it's the most succinct way I can like put this feeling. And it's the first time that it like really hit me. When I did do the port for Feed the Deep for mobile, it ended up winning like an award at a local,
nice.
It was like the Australian Game Development Awards for excellence.
Congrats.
In mobile. To be clear, great. And thank you. When I got that, so, it's like at a big show and you like go up on stage and everything.
Yeah.
I went up on stage and I was like, this is great kind of thing, obviously. But it's like, I have in my profession, like, just like containing it to the bounds of like my professional career, I've literally never felt as lonely as I did in that moment. And so then after that, there's like they do like a little like, photo shoot of everyone with their awards. And so all the award winners are in like a line and there's all like these teams that are like, holy shit, can you believe it? Like we did it kind of thing. And I'm just kind of like,
yeah. Okay.
And
okay,
I understand that like I am happy on like one level, but like I also get this sense of like this isn't the same as when
you were
like,
in
experiences
a bigger team.
like that I've shared with a team.
Okay.
And so I love the flexibility. I love how much it allows me to like push myself. I love the professional growth that I get from it. I love that I can take dumb creative risks like the golf game. I'm able to do things that I couldn't do in any other context, or like less likely to be able to do in any other context. But it is really isolating. And it's the same as what I was saying before. Like no one else knows exactly like what that the experience was like.
Yeah.
I find it quite isolating and lonely. And I think that eventually I will need to not do that. And maybe I would come back to it and like, maybe I start a studio, or maybe I like literally just go join someone else's studio or do something where like I'm a part of something larger. There's no way I could imagine doing this for a super long amount of time. It's just there's something that I miss there. It's funny, I consider myself very much an introvert as well, but making games is hard, and I feel like not having that as a shared experience is difficult.
Yeah, like it's a creative endeavor too, and we having worked in both, I can understand the aspect of when you are with other creative people, how it can build things that are greater than the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah.
And I can understand the desire perhaps to want to be in that kind of environment. Because I mean, for a while, I worked out of a co-working space down in Brighton when I was living there, and just the types of conversation I have, even when I was working on my own, just having people come over my shoulder and just be like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing? You know, or maybe you should do this or do," and just those micro conversations just were huge. And I do miss that. Like I can empathize with what you're talking about, because I had a lot of that there, and since moving to Vancouver and working from home permanently for like the past 7 years now, I don't have that. And even online, you just don't have that like creative, being in the same space as other smart, creative people and learning off of each other and just building each other up. So I can actually really strongly resonate with what you're getting at fully.
Yeah, I actually do work out of a studio one day a week. So I have friends in Brisbane who have a studio called Protostar. They used to do, well, I mean, they still do mobile. They've done a VR game recently for exactly that. Like, and I just go and work on my thing. They work on their thing, but inevitably we show each other our stuff, often play test each other's stuff. And, you know, being in that environment is a big help, but it's still like, you know, and like I said, even when like some of the I'll be with the contractors that help me out and feed the deep. It's still just like they haven't been in that trench with you. And it's just, that's the part I think I really miss.
The full big picture of it.
Yeah. I don't know, just someone to share the trauma.
Speaking of trauma, let's move on to normal golf game.
Oh, yeah. Good seg. I like it.
So you decided to turn this thing. So clearly you had this idea I remember when you were actually talking about it in one of your recent videos, actually you mentioned this. So, so this had kind of been in your mind for 18 months while you're working on Feed the Deep then.
Yeah.
And then, why don't you dive into the, evolution, let's say, of what was previously called Luke Muscat's Ultimate Golf Challenge? Is that right?
That was it. Yeah. Luke Muscat's Ultimate Golf Challenge, now normal golf game, which I can talk about too. Like that's been interesting. I mean, the original kind of idea for it was simply that golf is a hard game and golf games are mostly easy. Mostly, there's exceptions, but you know, broadly speaking, I feel like most people understand. If I can picture what I'm saying when it's like you aim at the hole and you press a button and a bar fills up, and then you press a button again and that's the power, and maybe you have another one for aim, and that's it. And it's sort of more about placing the ball and, you know, like either taking risks or whatever, but it's very rarely about like execution. And if people have played golf, especially like people who have just like played like a little bit, like go and do like a top golf driving range, or, you know, like maybe played one round of 18 with their friends who are into it.
It's really hard.
It's so hard. It's so difficult. Like every shot is terrible. It's such like a brutal game. But the thing that was in my head the whole time was like, it is brutal, it's savage, but when you do hit a good shot,
when you get the shot,
you're just like, it just feels so good. And I think that the reason it feels good isn't just because of like you know, like the feeling in your body of things moving the way they are, or like the tactile sensation or the sound. It's because it is cast against this backdrop of failure. It is like it contextualizes it, right? Like the bad shots contextualize the good ones. And so that was always kind of the idea. And I just wanted to do, and I feel like I've said many times now, there's like a pattern with my games where it's about input. Like Fruit Ninja was about the swipe input. The one before that, Rocket Racing, was about the shoulder, like analog shoulders, which was novel at the time, being like the core part of the mechanic, landsliders. And I was like, well, let's do a novel input system for a golf game. So that's kind of how it started. And originally I was going to keep it like really tight. It was originally called overly realistic golf or something, and then it moved into like Luke Muscat's hole-in-one challenge, and it was literally just going to be you like digging that one shot, trying to get a hole-in-one, and it was going to be almost impossible that someone would get it. And it would be that there was just one achievement for the game. And it was like, there was no like good shot. Wow, you got close. It was like, that's another, not a hole in one. You know, it was supposed to just be like really, like there was like a single level of trick shot simulator, basically. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the idea. And so it's been an interesting one because like I put this one out there and the first video for that did really good, but it actually really didn't get many wish lists at all off the back of that. So in terms of my like validating ideas, I got like really mixed signals.
Right.
So I really didn't know what to do, but I liked the project. So I kind of, it failed to meet my like my set metrics, and I was like, I'm doing it anyway. You can't stop me. Past Luke. Future Luke is current Luke is taking over, and future Luke can regret it. So that's kind of where it started. And so that was always like kind of the vision for it. Originally as well, it was going to be full, it was going to only be video, like everything would be video. And there was, you know, this overlaid ball that was kind of like perspective match. Like, so the ball and the trail would be 3D, but literally everything else would be video. And I kind of got that working, and so the reason I picked, sorry, just to back up, the reason I picked video was simply to avoid having to draw art. I was like, at this point, I'm like, I feel like I'm pretty handy with a camera. I'm pretty handy with like video production, like workflows through doing the YouTube thing. Let's try and play to the strengths, and I will do it all with video. Ultimately, it just became too restricting to do just video, and so it ended up making like a 3D course, because just not being able to like place the camera where the ball is actually a huge restriction. I tried lots of things to get around that, but in the end just sort of needed to free that up. And so every step of the evolution of the game has just kind of been in response to what happened. So yeah, I did that first video, and it just, like I said, the video did really good and people were into it, but then no one was wishlisting the game. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just because the game, so literally the way the thought process was like, the Steam page doesn't look very good because all the screenshots look exactly the same. And I ended up adding first person mode where you could like walk around and get into different positions, because it just made the game visually way more interesting. Right. It was never really intended to be like a unique selling point. It was literally like a way to generate more visual variety. But then immediately it was like, oh, this unlocks
so much potential.
Yeah. And then it was also like the whole like kind of narrative of the game and the challenges. Everything just came in response to like, it needs something interesting here. And it's very, this game is very, I feel like the best way to describe it is like, this game is like me as a game in a lot of ways. It's all the things that I like, kind of thing. It's like weird, like really weird input system. Very much something I like. Graphically, like very bright and cartoony, but with very strange production techniques, because I find that really interesting. Like, there's a lot of parts of the game that are like janky, that are like deliberately janky. And it's not because I couldn't make them better. It's because I think, and also not everything is janky and not everything is super jank. There's just some things are a bit janky in particular ways, and often they're janky in different ways. And the reason that I really have been leaning into that is I like when you can see how something has been made. It's like, you know, like I think billboarding is really interesting because you're like, I understand what's happening and I understand the effect. And then the jankiness is imperfections in how that's been implemented, right? Either imperfections in the technology or imperfections in how the human implemented that technology. And that's kind of what I've been wanting to do. That's become my art style for this game, is like doing things like mostly fairly innocuously and then drawing attention to imperfections. And then like, you know, the writing for like the narrative is like this super meta narrative where it's basically about the relationship between the game developer and the player, because I am the antagonist in it. Like all these things are things that I think are interesting and think are fun sort of thing. And it's kind of just become, I keep on adding more and more of like, I like this because I think this is interesting and I like this about games, into like this big mishmash.
I think it comes through. I think you've got like, I think it's clear for what you're saying, right? That you have, your personality is just like you're wearing it on a sleeve in this game.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I think the humor, and the humor comes out of that. Like that, I was playing the demo before we started speaking, and like it's just so funny. And you've just like, to me, you've just nailed so much of what you were talking about with early golf games too, like the aesthetic mixed in with a more modern kind of premise plus your input.
Yeah, so I'm really relieved that like the game looks okay, because that the full motion video for the hands and the golfer is such a big risk.
You need to go into detail about this, because especially for me, like as soon as you were like, oh, I'm just going to green screen everything, I'm like, that sounds like a production nightmare.
Yeah, it's been a time. So I guess like for people who haven't seen it, if you just kind of imagine like a I don't know, maybe like PS2 era kind of like golf game, like a golf course, but in first person, the hands are like my hands, they're video green screened out, and then in the third person, when you're like swinging a golf club, that's like a video golfer as well. He's actually my friend. So, you know, right at the beginning of the podcast, I said my second game, I was like co-lead, like first time ever, like co-lead on a project. That's Simon Joslin, who's the golfer in normal golf.
Okay,
game.
Cool.
We worked together on that DS Avatar game in 2008. and we actually went to university together before that. We've known each other forever. And so, again, like the video was like me just trying to avoid having to do art that I knew I would be bad at, but also like knowing that it would be unique and kind of having this sense that I think it could work. But
what a great inkling to have, though. Like, what a great hunch. How that's paid off, man.
Yeah, hopefully it ended up being obviously a lot more work and in every way than just getting like a 3D, because you have the biggest thing is you have no flexibility. Like, so to get a golfer was really hard to like get someone, because here's so as I was making this, I was like listening to a bunch of golf podcasts. And the thing I learned, like, I was trying to immerse myself, and to be clear, this is like, it's a golf game, but it's also not specific. It has to keep golfers happy, but it's not aimed at golfers. It's aimed at like people who like sports golf games, people who like Mario Golf kind of thing. But what I learned was like the swings can be very beautiful or very ugly, right? And when I had taken for the first devlog a bunch of, I went and played like a round of golf with my friends because it had lots of good B-roll, and I did a lot of the recording on the golf course. No one wants to see my swing over and over. Like, it looks so horrendous, right? At the same time, the whole premise is that you hit a lot of bad shots and then sometimes some good ones. So you also don't want like, a Tiger Woods golf swing every swing, because it doesn't look like that's going to hit a bad shot. You want like a competent amateur golfer kind of thing. So finding someone who could fill that role, because it's not me, that took a bit of time. And then also the fact that then you need like, I needed to get like an actual green screen studio to do this space. Just getting a green screen studio quite hard. Like, a lot of green screen studios in Brisbane are set up for like interviews and things like that, or, stand and chat kind of stuff. And when you swing a golf club, like, it goes at its highest point, it's really high. And so most studios, their lighting rigs are quite a lot lower than that. So just finding the space was a whole thing. Like that took me a long time, and I had like a lot of interactions with a lot of people trying to figure that out. And, there was a bit where we were like getting ready to like build a ad hoc green screen studio. So then you do all of the recording, right? And we do all of these different swings with all of these different clubs. And there's heaps of stuff that I recorded as well. Like, as an example, I was like, the course is quite big, and at some point it's going to get tiresome to move around the course. We might need a way to get the player around the course to different places. That could be, for example, a golf cart, or it could be like a teleporter portal type system. It's not like if a month later, if I'm working on the game and I'm like, you know what? Turns out that like a golf cart would be great. It's not like you can just go, well, let me just pose my 3D model to be sitting down inside a golf cart.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Be like, hey, Simon, I need you to come back up to Brisbane again. Hey, Green Screen Studio, here's another $900. Hope you've got time in your schedule. And then, oh, wait, where is the exact shirt that you were wearing last time we were? It's so difficult. It's so non-scalable that it became such a production nightmare from that perspective. So when it all got put into the game and actually worked, I was just like, I remember I've got it in and working. I literally like pushed back, put up my arms and just like walked out of the room. I'm like, it works, baby.
Dude, I think it's great. Like even the fact that it's actually really obvious that the first person hands aren't the same as the golfer that is playing is just funny, so funny.
Simon is an incredibly hairy man. Like it's actually caused a lot of problems in the keying because he is he's got that like Mediterranean heritage. He is fucking hairy, man. And like if my like skinny little arms come into the frame. It's funny, like the first person stuff I ended up doing with my hands because that actually needed way more iteration. And like one of the biggest things was getting the hands in the right pose, the right distance apart with the right level of movement. Because initially I was doing like this as you're walking around, and it was way too distracting. And so I had to bring it down. And so I needed a really tight pipeline between implementation and recording in order to tweak those correctly. And also I was like, realistically, other than the fact that it's like bit of a like lack of continuity between the two things. There's really no reason for it not to be my hands. It's also shot incredibly wide. Like the field of view doesn't match the game field of view simply because it's really hard to, the game field of view is like more narrow than it would be in a first person shooter because it doesn't matter as much about like things being in your periphery. It's more like I need to see a distant object. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to see the golf hole. It's not like you need to see an enemy coming in from the sides. So it's a little bit tighter, not so tight that it causes motion sickness because I know that that's a thing, but it's a little bit tighter than you would expect. And if you try and match that through the lens of the camera for the hands, literally like you get the camera like this and my hands can't quite like stretch enough to be able to like reliably do it. So it's a wide field of view, which means that the arms get distorted as they reach the edge of the screen. And in that way, it matters that I am like quite skinny. Because because I'm quite skinny, by the time you pull it in with the wide field of view and the hands pull to the edge of the screen, they actually look a bit more like similar proportion to
because of the way that lens distortion works, right?
There's been a lot of things like that. I had another friend who was a good candidate to be the golfer, but and so like in a way I feel like I learned a lot of things. Like I feel like I understand a little bit more about how like it must be for like when you're casting for like actual like film and video production. It's literally like I don't know how to say it. It's like you are like a little bit too skinny to look right on the screen. In the same way that I am. Like he's got a very similar build to me. my like bad swing aside, like when I put myself in there, it's like I literally don't have, because it's like pushed up into the corner, you're quite small on screen. It literally needs to be someone with like more presence.
Yeah, there's only a certain amount of screen real estate that you have available for the player character. Yeah.
And it also needed to be like, like we actually took a bunch of shots with Simon and ended up putting like the heavy sunglasses on him and the hat in order to like somewhat anonymize him a little bit.
That's a great secondary. I hadn't thought about that, but now that you mention it, it's like, yeah, no, that's a great way to make the player feel more like that it's actually them.
Yeah. And I mean, we ideally, what I would like to do is like do like a whole bunch of like different characters that you can be, and to have like that.
Oh, that would be awesome.
People be able to select someone that like, but just like I literally couldn't afford to scale it in that way. If the game does really good, I would definitely like love to do that, because the other thing was like the great thing was like Simon did a really good job of like emoting and acting. Everything's like a little bit theatrical. It's like when you're on stage for theater, you have to kind of overact.
Be bigger.
It's not like
You're still just like do the thing. The person at the back of the audience needs to be able to see what you're
exactly.
doing.
Yeah. And so like Simon did such a good performance of that, and I think it would be amazing to have like a cast of characters that you could pick from that would all bring something like different to that. Like I feel like you could add a lot of that. That would be like really fun to do. But yeah, there's like lots of really interesting kind of like little choices we had to make along the way, and it's been really fun to work on, but like insanely stressful because it's just so not scalable.
Right. Yeah, no, it's such a fun game, and I'm so glad that it's working and it's paid off, because I can't imagine the like sheer. I don't know, for lack of a better word for it, like just disappointment if it hadn't have panned out. But like you've made the right choices clearly, and it's all sort of added on top of each other to sort of become the project. So you just I don't know, I'm in awe of it. I think it's such a fascinating game, and I would love if you have some time for us to just like have a quick look at how you've put it together, because I think there's probably some interesting things.
Oh, this is gonna be what would I say? Don't do this for how this is put together. The other thing I was going to quickly say as well, just because I think it's interesting, the thing that's been hardest, or one of the things that's been hardest about this project has been the positioning, because Feed the Deep, it was like underwater cave diving roguelite, and it's like, I get it. This is like, it's not like this is a golf game but with different controls. It's like this is different in all of the ways. And so that is actually what led to me changing the name from Luke Muscat's Ultimate Golf Challenge to Normal Golf Game, was to try and fix the positioning of the game. Because like I don't have an elevator pitch for this game. Right? It's like what's the elevator pitch? It's like everything is weird. Is kind of the elevator. Yeah. And it's like, that's a terrible elevator pitch. So it's like, it's a golf game, but you have these weird controls where it's really hard to hit a shot. Also, there's a weird meta storyline. Also, there's weird composite FMV graphics.
I mean, it reminds me a lot of the like Stanley Parable-esque. It's sort of this comedy, this like meta commentary kind of thing that I think works really well in its favor. Like that is a genre of these games that exist that I think you have very I don't think you're going to have a lot of trouble, and perhaps I'm wrong here, and you can tell me. And I'd be interested to talk about Next Fest in your demo. But I do think people get it. To me, I got it immediately. I was like, oh, I get this. This is hilarious. And especially once you start playing the demo, I can see that, right? So
I think once you start playing it, yes. But pre-demo, part of the problem was. And I had said like the videos would do good and no one would wishlist it. That was one of the other reasons I heaps of people have commented to me on my last video that they think the name is worse now.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
So there's a part of me that does agree, because there's like Luke Muscat's Ultimate Golf Challenge has like a weirdly nice like cadence to it, which is cool. And, you know, it's fun having the personality of the name in it. The reason it's changed to normal golf game is because the easiest way to like position this is, you know, I said like it's a golf game where everything is like weird. You pick the name normal golf game, and then you just do the exact thing reversed. And it's like, it's a totally normal golf game. And the way that
you got nothing to worry about here.
Yeah. It sets it up for other people to say like, don't worry, it's totally normal. And that's, you know, everyone understands
exactly.
What that is. So
that's what I agree with you. And the fact that you've kept the challenge aspect of it as part of the meta of the game anyway, I think you get that through. So
I mean, I'm just like retconning stuff in from devlogs at this point.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I think that's wise. So okay, so how are you using Unity Terrain? Is that just like a default like
this is so this kind of isn't default. So yeah, this is Unity Terrain. But for the texture rendering, I'm using Microsplat by Jason Booth.
Okay.
Because you can't get crisp edges between the textures by default in like Unity. And for a golf course, that kind of like matters a lot to have like those kind of crisp edges. So yeah, it's using Microsplat, and then I'm using for the grass, because the grass is actually really quite dense. This is easy flow grass off the asset store.
So just a few different combinations of asset store assets.
So that's kind of the whole, originally when I did it, I made the course in 3D, but what I realized pretty quickly is I needed to manipulate the course a lot of the time. So yeah, that's kind of the trees also aren't Unity Terrain, because the way that the trees collision work is, I've got them turned off because there's so many of them. So the trees are obviously like these 8-slice kind of looking things, but also they have, I'll bring it right down here. They also have like a really severe alpha clip you can see, which gives like these really interesting, like, it kind of fits like the low poly, high texture look that the rest of it goes for. But the way that the tree collision works, obviously you just have the trunk, which like if the ball hits the trunk, it just goes like dunk. But if the ball enters like the actual like tree volume itself, you know, there's no branches or anything for it to bounce off. So what it does is it just randomly robs it between 1/4 and 3/4 of its velocity. And it also like redirects its velocity randomly to create this kind of like chaos. So the trees have 2 colliders that are on different layers, which means you can't just use the Unity trees, because the Unity trees by default will only let you use like a singular layer. So the trees are actually like their own system too. And then all of the trees have like this like tree placement script that does the randomization for me. And they also automatically like snap to the terrain. So you can see as I like slide it backwards and forwards.
I love that.
And
that's
that way if I'm that way if I'm manipulating like the terrain, they like move up and down
just carry
with it. So yeah.
Is that just doing a raycast
simple.
and then just
For a little bit of a problem, I didn't realize that I was doing that during runtime. So instead of just like in the editor, I was doing that in runtime too.
Across every single tree.
Across like that many trees. So yeah, there's quite a few little things like that.
This is URP.
This is URP, yeah. I like URP. It does.
I love it now. I didn't like it originally. Cabs is my first like big URP project, and I
think as long as you start with URP, like laughing. I did Feed the Deep originally in URP because I specifically needed like the 2D light
Right.
like dynamic shadow system. And so that was my first, And then, like things like the cliffs, these are all just like meshes that are just
rock mesh.
Placed.
Yep.
This is the textures of this are like, so I didn't make these cliff meshes. I got a contractor here, Alexander, to make them for me. I wonder if I can really quickly pull up let me show you the texture for every single cliff.
Sure. You just like, it's just a photo.
Oh, I can't bring it up. That's the texture down the bottom there. I'll make it a little bit bigger.
If you click the three dots, you can choose properties, and that'll pop it out. I think there's okay.
Oh god, there it is. I think because of the way the screen sharing is.
Never mind. That's fine. No, I can see it's just a picture. Yeah,
it's just, and so then the cliff is just great UV match to like this bottom section, and then you can, when you look at it, you can sort of start to see like the shapes there.
But and it works, man. Like that's such a great way to do that.
That was Alexander, and it's such a
genius.
It was really interesting working with him because, to be clear, he's a very good artist who makes high quality stuff. And I'm like, you need to jank it down a bit. And then he did it like way too janky. You know what I mean? Like it's a really hard thing to get across, like the look. But yeah, he nailed it in the end. So yeah, those are all just like meshes kind of thing. And, and there's some things that are deliberate, like I'll just come around into the light. The cliffs here are like, you can see is like nearest neighbor.
Yeah, you've compressed and then set the... Yeah.
But then it juts up against like the grass here, which is like bilineared and like, again, I'm like deliberately trying to create that kind of contrast for the jank effect. I don't want everything to be this like PSX style. Yeah. And it just sort of like suggests something about the surface as well. So that's kind of like how the environment is set up. But let me show you the hideousness.
I was going to ask sort of how do you then layer the three, like all of the video component? Like, are you using Unity's video system? Or are you running your, oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, that's the player there. Right, with the video playing. So obviously they're just on like a plane. It's
like a billboard. Yeah.
The feet, like as I move up and down, you'll see like there's a shader messing with like the feet to like kind of plant them.
So are you just warping the base of the low Y part of the?
No, it's actually like it's a weird perspective trick because there is a video third-person material with depth offset. It is running through this shader.
Incredible.
Which is basically like manipulating like the depth, like the Z of the position.
Yes.
So the player is actually down below the surface, but then pulled towards the camera so that the feet match without clipping. And then there is like just simply like a projector under the ground for so it's a blob shadow. So that's how that works. And so then you'll see there's this camera. This is where it gets crazy. You have like the golfer holder. You can start to see it now. I might make those the icons a bit bigger for you.
Okay.
So there's that video, and then there is like a camera, this camera looking at the player, right? So that's like the composite. That's this camera here, right? Yeah. So that camera then spits out into a render texture that then goes to like this FMV composite panel, which is here in the inspector.
And you're using canvas instead of UITK?
And that's a canvas with like then a render texture overlaid over it, at which point then there's another camera getting all of the panels. But also you see this panel here with the swing controls and this panel here with the slice. These are also cameras. So you can see here, there's this camera looking side on, and then that's rendered super low resolution and then like pushed through a post-processing stack. and then that gets pushed out into this render texture, so you get this kind of background that matches roughly where the player is like located in the space. And then there's another one looking down.
That sounds expensive. Is that like how does that?
It is,
yeah.
But I'll show you some tricks. Let me just also go scene.
I'm only thinking about this. So I was like heavily in the optimization path on cabs last week, so I'm just like really in how are you doing this without, how are you having, because I had to get rid of some of the render texture stuff that I was doing because it was just to get it to run in split screen in 4-player was just, and obviously you don't have that same thing, but you're still rendering multiple cameras here, so I'm curious.
This is not even the beginning of all the cameras, if you can believe it. I'll show you. It's pretty fun, like how some of it. Oh, I shouldn't be showing that stuff. I'll just debug down here. So there's also the first person camera, which then comes out. Oh, the sound is crazy because I'm like screen sharing and it's going out at like half speed. But so now obviously this is rendering like real time, right? But these cameras actually only render their frame once. So you'll notice if I like rotate, see these don't update. Because most of the time
captured a still frame. Yep.
It's just captured. So it's during that transition that it happens.
Cool.
So let me go somewhere with some more visual variety. So you can see like the little hit that you take gets masked through the transition as well.
Clever.
But I'll show you something else. This is potential spoilers for later in the game, but I think it's really neat because there's all of those cameras, right? Not to mention also this camera that then renders at the same time.
Yeah.
And then you also have the camera behind the clubs and this camera here. So right at this moment, there is the full frame and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cameras running. But also, a theme in the game, as you would have seen, is there are security cameras, right?
Are those real cameras?
Kind of. Later on in the game, there's also these cameras rendering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then
when you hit tab, the background is the cameras and the cameras of the...
There's the cameras and the cameras and the cameras and the cameras. But there's a really good trick with these. So you see these cameras, and you can see that like they're like panning around and everything, right?
Yeah.
What the way these work are, let me go to this camera. Scoop. Get this out here. So there's this camera here, and like it obviously pans back and forth like this. But because the environment is pretty like not dynamic, we can take like a single render text camera from here and save it out. And the way it is saved out is, so again, if I just pull this up, is this texture, which is like this double wide texture down here. So it's like twice as wide. Then there's this shader that I wrote that, like you can put in like the speed and everything and the offset, and you can see that it like pans back and forth between those 2 points. You can set different wait times and different speeds. And then we get like this overlay texture, and we push like the recording and everything over the top of that one texture. And then we also have linked into the time this like scrolling sample texture here, which does like the horizontal scan lines, which then get like lerped in. And so then like when you do all of that, let's get back in here, you get like this pretty convincing
it's great
like CRT that is like panning over the scene, and it's like insanely cheap to run because it's literally just like one fairly low res texture getting like pushed through a bunch of shit in a shader. And then these aren't even all different materials. Like to keep them optimal, this is like this is the panning camera texture. And then on the actual monitor itself, there's a texture override, and so you override like elements of the material block.
Material. Yeah.
So then they're still all GPU instanced together.
Oh, that's genius. That's so good.
Override. So it ends up being insanely cheap, even though you kind of get this illusion of like, you know, there is so many like cameras in this scene. But they all kind of like on or off at different times. Yeah. And it also does mean like, you know, part of the reason to keep the scene like really optimal is that everything has like a super multiplicative effect. Like any inefficiency in the scene gets like multiplied through a whole bunch of cameras. So it's nice to keep things like really like wherever you can, like super low poly, like well lodded, like all the fences like lod out. But I've kind of used the lod as a as like an aesthetic choice as well. And you know, like all the water is literally just it doesn't even have a texture on it. It all just runs through like a crazy shader that I wrote, and everything is as efficient as possible, basically.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's
so
really
there's
cool.
a lot of
really
weird
cool
setup stuff. Yeah, it's a really strange project, and it's very. The problem is it's very scene heavy and very setup heavy. So the scene itself, like a lot of scripts, like try to ensure that everything is in the correct state, but it's a very brittle setup. So you can accidentally do something and it has like catastrophic impacts if you're not careful with how you're manipulating the scene. Like, there's
awesome.
there's lots of like really weird stuff, and I love doing like everything is like world space like UI, right? Like I love having like everything in the 3D space, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. Thank you for sharing this. This is really cool.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's awesome to see. I'm always just curious how other developers build their tools and their systems, and I'm sure people watching are really sort of excited to be able to see some of that stuff. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah. So I guess we can just wrap up by going over the Next Fest stuff and the demo that people can play, right? Like, how is that going for you?
So the demo has been going really good. Like, I ended up releasing the demo a bit like a few weeks before Next Fest.
Always a good idea.
Well, the meta has been everyone releases like 2 weeks before Next Fest and then tries to like kind of spike it coming into Next Fest. I've never had much luck with Next Fest. So Feed the Deep, when I did Next Fest last time, the demo was out for 3 weeks, so 2 weeks before Next Fest and the Next Fest, and it got a total of 1,000 wish lists for all that effort, which is like kind of pretty average for the amount of effort that it was. Whereas I could do a devlog, and the devlog would be good for like 4,000 or 5,000 wish lists on average, depending on the devlog. And the devlog was less work than Next Fest. So this time I released even earlier, and it was part of like a big PR push. The demo release has gone really good. Like it's been getting like really good feedback, which is excellent. The day that I released the demo, so it was like the demo plus the green screen devlog plus X and Insta and all that. And I had both like a post on X and a post on Insta, 2 completely different videos, both individually go like viral.
Wow.
So it had like a really good start. Like it did like 3,500 wish lists in one day, which is
wow, well done.
Easily the best I've ever seen for like a non-launch window. You know, like the day before you get like heaps of wish lists and stuff. But outside of that, that was like really good. And so it's been quite strong. Next Fest has only just started, and I think because I made that sacrifice of going earlier to like kind of get some more like clear air where it wasn't everyone releasing their demos, it does mean it's kind of managed to like tail off, and it's probably tailed off a bit too much for Next Fest to get that lift from Next Fest. We'll see. It's only been a few hours, but like it seems relatively minimal so far. Like my CCU once Next Fest started went up by 10 It's just
Okay. Yeah.
basically negligible. It's hard because like Next Fest is
the first few days, from what I'm told, it's trying to filter through everything, and then it's like a little bit later in the week. It picks the momentum up. So
the thing that I feel good about, like I feel really good about the demo, like the actual like package.
Oh
itself.
Man, it's great. It's a fantastic demo. I would tell everybody watching this to go play the demo because it's such a good.
You definitely.
It's such like a good. It's such a good example, like a case study of like how to make a demo. It just like I think you nailed like just giving enough. It's basically just the tutorial, but everything is in the tutorial, and it gives you the charm. You understand that there's like the underlying meta of the game, let's say. But once you get to the end of it, the moment it's ending, even then I was playing it earlier, I was like, oh no, I want to keep playing. So
that's great. I feel really good about the demo, and I added a thing in where it was like so originally it was like you just finished it and it was like thanks for playing, blah blah blah. The two things that I added was like the extra 4 challenges that you could do, just because one of them is really hard, and it's like if you want to spend more time, there's something you can kind of chip away at. And then I kind of did a thing of like telling people they could speedrun the demo if they want. The demo is now up on speedrun.com. And
well done.
There's a few players who are 40 hours deep in speedrunning the demo.
How long is the demo for that?
The average playtime for the demo, it varies. Like any game that is like ostensibly about like a dexterity challenge, it varies a lot, right? So like probably the median is maybe 35 minutes or so. The average is higher than that because some people find it. I've had people tell me it takes them 2 hours to get through the demo. The speedrunners have gotten, like multiple speedrunners have got it down to like sub 3 minutes now to do the whole demo.
Wow. I think it took me about 20.
That's pretty good.
There were a couple where I was really struggling. It was like 2025. I was kind of struggling in a couple of them, but I can see it taking 2 hours if like, especially because there's I can tell there's a little bit of RNG there in the way that the club varies. And I can imagine that if you're not quite
interestingly like the real sticking point. So because there's the easy mode that added to the game for the demo as well, and literally all it does is turn off the chaos in that. So you're going to just set it. So you can still shape your shots, but it's not like a dual dexterity challenge. It just comes down to like a single dexterity challenge, which has been really, really interesting. Like that is the thing that it's hard because it's like, that's the thing that people struggle with, but you wouldn't struggle with it that much if that was all you had to do. You know what I mean? Like when you say like patting your head and rubbing your tummy.
It is. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I will say. The thing that I really liked about the way that I can tell that you just worked so hard on this, but the visualization of where your hand is and how it connects to the club and the way that moves with your mouse and the lerping and all of the smoothing that you have going on there, you can actually look at the club head and get an understanding for how the club head is moving enough with your mouse, I think, to
yes.
If I felt myself being like, if I sit here and play this for 2 hours, I feel like I can just like master that input mechanic to a point where I will always get the ball be able to hit it, or always. But that might also just be it feeling good, and that might be false. That might be a false feeling that I have. But you
definitely can get like incredibly. It is like real golf. Like you can get very good at it. But what I would say is, so like at the moment, I'm doing kind of the mid and late game content. I'm building the thing that is Luke Muscat's Ultimate Golf Challenge, which is like the boss, right? The final boss. And so in the demo, you only ever do shots that are like, it's just the shot, right? Like you don't have any real consequence. As you progress through the game, you get into situations where it's like, no, you have to make 3 good shots in a row. And as you get towards the end, have you ever heard of like a putting pressure drill before? Like this is a real golf thing. It's like, you know, there'd be like a pretty easy putt would be like a 3-foot putt or so. And what you do is like, but no, you have to do that from 10 different positions and you have to do all 10 in a row.
Oh, yeah.
You have to start again.
Yeah.
And doing the putt is easy, but you get to the ninth one, your head, it fucks you up. Like the pressure for doing the thing, you know the movement, and this has the same thing. Like there's stuff later on where you start to have to do like, this is a very high consequence pressure shot. And I know I'm very good at it because I've been playing it for so long. The pressure gets to you, man. It's so weird. It's like, I should be able to make this shot. Like 99 times out of 100 chilling, and then you put some pressure on it and my swing falls apart.
This game speaks to me on so many levels you don't understand. Like,
I'm so glad. That's so nice to hear. Again, like after so long of people and it is, I think like now that the demo is out, I feel much better about it because people can play it and they get it. When it's just like, and it took a long time to come up with the current trailer to know how to like sell and explain the game in a succinct way. I've been preparing myself for this game to be a failure for a long time because people enjoyed the devlogs, but actually no one was showing much interest in the game itself. Like I said, no one would, like the wish lists were really low, even though the views were high. And I every single showcase I applied to, like, nothing. I couldn't get into, and I've been rejected from about everything I could apply. I've applied for basically everything and been rejected from everything. And it's been real, like people, like it just doesn't jump off the page and people don't get it. And this last couple of weeks is the first time I've started getting the feedback of I get it. And I'm like, thank God.
I'm glad to hear that, man. Because from the beginning, from when first hearing a devlog, I was like, I see this, I can see the potential in this. I think to me, maybe this is a difference in what you've had before. It's just that like it was early stages. It was like early ideation, and like you've had to go through that journey. Talking about iterative game design, you've had to go through the iterative aspect to get to the essence, I think, of what you've found. But to me, it just sounds like you've landed on it now, and now it's just like getting to your end point where you can release it, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's still lots of challenges. Like one of the biggest challenges is like anything that is, I mean, one of the things I'll say about the demo is it took so much iteration. You know, the challenge with the bowling pin?
Yeah.
You know, that has literally been 9 different variations of that challenge before it landed where it is now. It's fucking crazy how long it took.
Onboarding is tough. Onboarding is one of the things that you need to spend a ton of time on, and you will iterate on endlessly. But when it's right, it pays off, and you start to really see the payoff.
One of the most fascinating things with that challenge was, you know how it's like the barrier. You got to. So I guess for people listening, there's like you have to curve a shot like through a barrier to hit a giant target. So obviously there's lots of things like, you know, the target has gotten bigger over time, blah, blah, the wording has changed. One of the most fascinating things was originally there wasn't, you know, it wasn't a gap in a barrier. There was just one barrier, the barrier on the left, right?
Okay.
And in my head, I'm like, that is easier because it's less imposing, blah, 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 blah. But I end up talking to Chevy, who's someone a fellow game developer who I've known for like, I've worked with for 20 years or something. And he was like, I just never quite bend back around enough to hit the pin.
You're right. You have too much room almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was sending it way out to the right. So then you add the barrier to the right, which looks like it will make it much harder. But now you get the feedback of like, you can't be that far to the right. And then you only actually need to curve it a tiny bit to hit it. But the problem was people were going max curve.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah. And so it's like, but then you put the extra barrier there, which looks like it makes it harder and it guides people to make it a lot easier. And the thing I'll say is like, there has been like about 300 people have play tested the game, and like 50 people of those got on the Discord that's in there, and they helped so much with the iteration of that first 30 minutes. Like that first 30 minutes has had a lot of love go into it, and I'm just hoping that then I can kind of keep that quality through the rest of the experience, because
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things too, though. Once you've had that first 30 minutes, you get it.
Yeah, hopefully it eases up. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to work as hard because it's getting the initial context, like buy-in. It's like the buy-in from the player to understand how the world works, how the systems work, and how the mechanics work.
Yeah.
Once that threshold is, it's like learning to ride a bike. It really is. It's just like all of this effort is at the front, but then once you've got it, it should just be sort of more inherent and natural. So yeah,
it should be
natural. So
one of the big things I learned from doing that first bit is a big risk is you make a challenge that's just too hard and it becomes like a roadblocker for someone. So at the end of the tutorial where you see like those 4 bounties, those bounties actually become a lot of the meat of the game, because it's like, okay, because like in the full game, the next thing you do is you need to buy the putter, right? And so the reason the bounties are in there at all is what it lets you do is like, instead of being like, all right, you've complete 10 more challenges, then like you have to do challenge 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then you get the putter. It means I can be like, here is 20 challenges, you have to do 10 of them to get to the next part of the game. And it means that if one of those is completely cooked and like people just don't get for whatever reason, it's not like a showstopper moment anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. It basically like de-risks like the main line of the game and makes sure, because again, it is about like, it's a dexterity challenge. Very easy for me to accidentally make something that is like, so bad that it's a showstopper moment. And it means what I can do is I can put insanely hard stuff in the game, but it's always optional. And I can kind of keep the main line like easier. And then like, people shouldn't get fully stuck on like, just like, I literally can't progress the game because I can't do one thing. That's like a big risk, I think, with this kind of game. And I want it to be difficult, but I'm not going for like full co-op rage game,
Yeah. It did remind me a lot of that Fodian kind of thing, though, which I think is actually a plus. But I completely understand what you're talking about, and I think it's smart. I think it's smart to have that optional mentality to it.
Yeah, people are into different things, and it's nice to like give them space to like express that and enjoy that in the way that they want to enjoy it. And some madman will perfect the game, there are like some like very optional bounties that are just like absolutely fried. They are so improbable, like harder than a hole in one.
I'm very excited to try those out.
Yeah. Those are, you couldn't put them on the main line and be like, you don't get to finish the game until you do this, because there'd be plenty of people who are like, I am not here for this. I am here for like the kind of the humor and the world and like some fun challenges. And so just trying to kind of create that space for both kinds of players. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, well, like I said, I'm excited to play more, man. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to share? I mean, I guess there's a demo available to people. You said, I think the trailer says it's releasing summer. Do you have like a solid release date? Or
no, it was originally it was going to be, I can tell you what it originally was going to be. Originally it was going to be a month from now, because literally the wish lists were so low and the interest was so low that I was like, I just need to finish the game. So I stopped spending time and money on it because it's going to be a financial disaster for me. So I was like, it's releasing in July, and now I'm like, oh wait, actually people are enjoying it and there is interest in it. So I want to make sure it doesn't come out half-baked.
Okay.
It'll definitely still be like this year. And, I like everyone else, am trying to avoid the GTA 6 apocalypse.
So it'll be out in September then?
I'm kind of hoping to get it in early September at the moment, but I'm not. I'm sort of waiting to see where things land with Next Fest and to, make sure that I want to, number one thing is I want to release a good game, and number two is I want to release it soon. But the number one is making sure it's good. So hopefully it still kind of just lands in summer. But yeah, it's been thrown up in the air a little bit by how well the demo has been received and how well things have been going.
Summer Australian time?
So that's the thing, is I don't want to release then either. That's too late. I don't want it to be Australian summer. I don't want to miss by that much. But yeah, it's like August, September. Hopefully, there's a chance it could go slightly later than that, just depending on how one or two opportunities like might pan out. But I'm hesitant to put a date out there because if I miss it again, it's very unlike me to miss dates too. Like this is one of the first times I will have really blown.
I say, yeah, you said earlier you were picking dates.
This game is so. This has been one of the hardest games for me to work on in my career. It's so there's nothing for me to like. There's not many examples that I can like use to kind of streamline things and like follow, and like, you know, this game has been insanely difficult like development process for me. So yeah, this is like I will have like missed my stated timeline, and I'm hoping I don't miss it twice because that would actually be disastrous for me.
Oh man, I'm sure you won't, and I think it's already. It looks to me like you're just in like content land.
Hopefully, yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
That's always a slight because you can see that timeline as you're working on it. So yeah. Well, thank you, man. Thanks so much for sharing all of this. It's
that's all right. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. This went a lot longer than I think we'd both planned on this going.
I know. 2 hours 47. So
yeah, we'll see. It might be a little shorter than that when it comes down to the edit, but I doubt it'll be much because there was a lot of really awesome info in here. So
no, it's been a pleasure. It's fun to chat, and it's fun to like. It's actually like I really enjoyed like doing the little tour of the actual scene.
Yeah.
It's like it's what I like about devlogs, but like not having to edit the video and make it tight. Like being able to just show stuff. That's really fun.
I just love seeing how everybody does all of their, because somebody will do something. I'm like, that's a really smart idea, and I can use that. You know, I put that in the bank later for something I might want to be able to do. So yeah, it's important that I if I can, get people to dive into sort of.
I feel like real games are not set up like the tutorials either. You know what I mean? Like it's such a different thing.
Yeah, and I try and share that in the videos that I make. So in the same way that this is just one way to do things, and you just have to like extrapolate this for your bespoke reason. But it's hard to make a tutorial within the bounds of a real game, because then you have to build the real game before you can make the tutorial.
Yeah.
So that's always sort of one of the things that I'm always trying to deal with when I'm teaching things. 2/3 of the time it comes from something I'm building for a game anyway, so I can sometimes use that as a base. But yeah, I fully agree. It's nice to see things in production, how they look, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so anything, wishlist the game, demo, play the demo?
Wishlist the game, play the demo and see if you like it. And if it's your jam, then wishlist the game, you know.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have the link down below. Definitely go play it. I had a great time with it, so.
Thanks, man. That's really nice. I'm like, that warms my heart to hear.
Well, yeah, cheers. Thank you, Luke, for joining.
Thanks, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this first episode of About Game Dev, and a huge thank you to Luke for joining me. It was a genuinely insightful discussion, and I learned a ton from chatting with him, so I really hope you enjoyed it too. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with a brand new episode. New full-length episodes will be hosted here on my second channel, so if you aren't already subscribed, be sure to do so if you don't want to miss them. And of course, all episodes will be available ad-free over on Patreon as well. I've got a great lineup of guests coming up from all sorts of different backgrounds across the games industry. We'll be diving into everything from programming and design to art, production, tooling, and the stories behind how games are actually made. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you for another conversation about game dev.